I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Northfield Finance Committee. This is March 22nd, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Northfield Finance Committee will be conducted by a remote participation to the greatest extent possible. A record of the proceedings will be posted on the Town of Northfield website as soon as possible after the meeting. And as I mentioned, Jack will not be with us tonight. The town moderator will be joining us at some point, and we have our meeting here now, and then the select board members will join us at 7 o'clock. So first is the review and approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which were March 15th, a week ago. And I've sent those out to you this morning, I believe, probably.
While folks look at that, Lois, this is Nathan. I've joined in, but I keep my camera off and listening.
Hi, Nate. We just started. We're doing the minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Dan Campbell seconds that.
Okay, motion made to accept the minutes of March 15th as written. Any discussion? All in favor?
Dan
Aye.
Campbell says yes.
Bernie says yes.
Tony, yes.
Sue Kaczynski, yes.
And I'm yes, so it's unanimous. Thank you. I want to acknowledge that I was wrong last week on the fire rescue vehicle, so we've corresponded about that. It is, he did intend it to be next year, not this year. So this has given Andrea time to remove it from the articles for this year. I think we have some unfinished business here, which is, well, we had hoped to do the vote on the school budget, but they had delays. And so there's a public hearing tomorrow night, and then the school committee is voting tomorrow night on the budget. Andrea's put the figures in so all we have, and that's what's still showing in the paper as the proposal. I don't anticipate a change. Do you, Andrea?
I haven't heard anything. We did receive official certification notification today from the tech school, and it is the amount that we have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and we were going to also talk about the boiler that was called for the highway department heat over there. Have anything new to report on that, Andrea?
No, I haven't been given any other figure, although I've been pretty much led to believe that 40,000 is the highest estimate. And since he's not sure what he's going to be recommended to do, he's still proposing to use that number because they're two different systems, and he's not sure which system he's going to be recommended to
Okay, one
install.
was wood and one was propane, I believe, right?
Yes.
But we need the placeholder in there. Well, we need the figure in there to be planning our figures.
Yep. So I've
because
added it.
Yeah, they need to replace that. Whatever's there isn't going to last. So, okay. And the other thing is the town clock. And I'd like to thank the man that did all the work. And he's gone ahead, apparently based on the fact that we need the information. He's had an electrician look at it, and he's contacted somebody that does clock repair and so forth. And I think we should thank him and appreciate the work that he's done. He's from the church. So anything, what do you have on that now, Andrea?
I sent you copies of the email and copies of the attachment. So I been corresponding with Brian Smith, who put all this together and then sent it to me. The first document you have is the letter from the jeweler who would work on this, and he's saying 3,000 to 5,000 to just do the clock, just the clock itself. And you have that letter kind of explaining who he is and what he wants. And then the recommendation for the electrical costs, there's quite, I mean, they were talking $1,000 just to do the initial inspections and pulling it out. But then if you read the description of what has to be done, it's quite extensive in terms of electrical work, including running new wiring all the way up. It's not grounded. So I emailed back to Brian and said, so what are we really talking? 3 to 5 is one estimate. What's the other? And he's thinking that the total would be, they would recommend requesting is $10,000.
And at that,
But they don't have the electrical estimate, like exactly yet, a dollar figure.
yeah. And he mentioned the possibility of maybe needing a hoist or something to get up on the outside.
Yes,
But in other words, setting the estimate at 10,000 would encompass these different things that are possible.
that seems to be his understanding, or at least he would anticipate.
Okay, sorry.
Andrea, is his name David or Brian Smith?
It might be, well, it comes to me as David Smith. Well, no, it's signed David Smith, First Parish, Northfield resident, but he's using an email. No, I got dsmith10@gmail.com. So, it's David Smith.
It's David. Okay. The reason I asked that is because that was my brother-in-law's name. So that's why I remembered. When you
My
said
daughter
Brian,
went to
it
school
still
with a David Smith too, but
sort of
yes,
threw me off.
That's what I
it's
thought.
David Smith.
Yes.
David Smith.
Okay. Let's discuss it. How do you people feel about it? I think he's done a lot of work that saved somebody in town. I started out with talking about a committee, and I think we've got enough committees. And he's gone ahead, looks like, with the idea that, okay, we've got a deadline here. We've got to get articles in and finish them and divvy up the money, whatever money's available, or decide whether we can fund it or not. And I think that's great that he's done that. To me, the town clock is something that should be restored and maintained. And you can see from some of the work that is being recommended, there hasn't been any maintenance on it. I mean, there was some work done on the clock several years ago and money raised for that. But, oiling and maintaining and that sort of thing needs to be done. So I think if we get this done and the work done, I think there also needs to be a maintenance account for that clock. All we've had is a contribution toward the electricity to the First Parish Church. How do the rest of you feel?
I would agree with that. I think the first order of business is to get it working. And obviously, if we get it working, it's going to be in pretty good shape. So maybe next year we look into, we have some time to figure out what it might cost for maintenance and how often, et cetera. But right now, I think the primary thing is to get it working, and certainly that'll take us through till next year's meeting.
Okay.
Usually the longer you let something like this go, the worse it costs. So basically you're looking to add more costs if you delay, I believe.
True.
I personally support the repair of the clock. It's a town item. It's really hasn't cost the town much money over the last several years. There's been no maintenance done on it. And obviously the lack of maintenance doesn't help for its operation. So I think the investment in repairs is necessary. And again, I agree with Tony that we should have a maintenance line item for the, so it can be reasonably cared for on a regular basis. So I'm supportive of the, appropriating the money to have it repaired.
Sue?
I think once
Yeah.
you get it repaired, as far as doing it, these people would be able to give you an idea of what the maintenance would be yearly, or if you wanted, every 2 to 3 years as far as doing that. So we could anticipate that a little bit better, but I'm in support of the funds for this project.
Okay, I agree with what Bernie said. Everything that Bernie said, he's pretty much spelled it right out. I agree that, get it fixed and then get a line item in there for maintenance.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, the town clock is an icon here, just like the town fountain that was preserved by moving it. You people wouldn't remember, but it used to be that Warwick Avenue came out and split around the town fountain.
Yep.
And then it was moved over here near the town hall. And so, Andrea, you have, I don't know, I didn't check here just now.
Well, just a discussion we just had, it looks like it's unanimous. We want to support this.
Yes, okay. Will somebody make a motion so we can vote it, make it official?
I make a motion that we appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the repair of the town clock.
Okay,
Do you want to, in your motion, specify the funding source, or do you want to discuss that after?
yeah, let's not say appropriate. How should we?
Appropriate is fine. You just have to say whether you're raising it by taxation or free cash, or, I mean, those are really the two sources we're using right now.
Okay, let's get a second on it and then discuss that part of it. Is someone seconding it?
I, Bernie Parada, second that motion.
Okay, Andrea, where do you stand on, what would you suggest as far as the source of money at this point?
Well, you have right now, untouched, or so to speak, or free in your free cash, approximately $36,000, the way the budget is set right now, the way it's before you. So you can obviously take it from there. It depends on how much you feel about leaving any money in there, or whether you don't mind spending that all down. I mean, it's $10,000. So according to our budget summary, in terms of the effect on the tax rate, it would be fairly minimal. I'm trying to get my cursor to my other screen. Sometimes I have a little trouble doing that. So it would be, I mean, 50,000 is 10 cents on the tax rate. So 10,000 might be a penny or two, might be a penny.
But there
So,
is free
I can
cash.
add, there is free cash. I mean, I can add just randomly $10,000 on my spreadsheet
Defense.
and just see what it does. Yeah, it didn't even affect the tax rate.
Yeah, and it wouldn't.
Well, let me just see, actually. Yeah, it didn't even affect it, because it must not be at a,
Well, if you take it out of free, if you
Right,
take it
so
out
I'm
of
just-
free cash, it wouldn't
it won't
touch
affect
it.
the tax rate at all. But when I type additional 10,000 into my chart right now on the expenditure side, based on a $10 million budget, 10,000 does not move the needle.
It does not work.
Taking it, yeah.
Does it? It does not, it doesn't push it over a penny.
Yeah, right.
Oh, well, it did that time, yes. So it might technically push the tax rate a penny. It depends on,
But taking it out of free cash isn't going to affect the
No.
tax rate.
it does not affect the tax rate at all.
And there's enough money there left in free cash that we could do that.
Right now, the way this sits, you have $36,141 in free cash unspent.
Okay.
So you can go either way.
So far, I would think that we could use the free cash money.
I would agree with that.
I have no problem with that.
I would agree with that.
I know
No, and
Andrea's
these-
holding till we see what figures haven't been finalized yet, so that's why you're.
No, right. This is what you have there, but you haven't really
Yes.
completely decided.
So let's have her consider using free cash, and we'll hold. Excuse me, we'll not finalize things at that point then. Okay,
Should we say, I mean, we're going on the upper end with the $10,000. So it's possible it might not cost that much. I was talking to David Smith, and he said the electrician he had up there says the motor seems to be working fine. It was working before. It seems to be working fine. May not cost that much. So should we put in up to 10,000? Or no, I guess we can't do that. It's got to be an exact figure, I guess.
Right,
Yeah,
it'll
if you
just
don't
set
use it, it goes back into
10,000.
free cash next year. So-
Right, what you don't
Yeah.
use just rolls.
So I
We'll close the
Uh,
article. We'll close the article once the appropriated purpose is finished. So if it goes past a year because they're still doing something, then it actually stays. But the minute you close the article, when the repairs are done, then yes, that money goes back into the calculation.
okay.
And by going free cash, they could start immediately after the town meeting, correct?
Yes,
Tony, he evidently had an electrician, I think his memo said from Bernardston, that looked
Yeah,
at
Dave
it.
LaPrade was the electrician he had come in
I
and
wondered,
check it out.
that's good. Okay, is there anything further, Andrea, that you'd like us to discuss on that?
no, I just was gonna let you know, no, I'll put it in. I've added it to my chart already, so I'll just renumber everything. And
Okay,
get it in
now,
the warrant.
the select board hasn't acted on, or hasn't seen that one yet. Am I right?
No.
Correct. Okay. Okay, those were the two items I thought were still hanging from last week. We had heard about both of them at the last thing there. Is there anything else, Andrea, that's come up?
No, I have the CPC articles. They were sent to me this morning. Obviously, they don't affect the tax rate, so that language I will add to the warrant. And I've got four articles, and I've got four. I have,
Okay,
they'll go right in where we've made room for them. So the
And-
warrant officially closes today.
yes,
So I haven't received anything. We had thought for a little while that we might be getting a petition article. I don't think it was a money article, but you didn't receive anything today, Dan, right? To certify? Yeah,
nothing.
and I haven't received anything either. So this should be it. Basically, once I put in the CPC language and add the clock, unless anything else gets added by the select board at this point, for any particular reason. It's closed to public.
yeah,
They voted to close it on the 22nd, so it's closed to public edition.
okay. Is there anything else that any of our members think that we should be further discussing?
The only
before-
thing is that Dan and I had talked about a sign out in front of town hall. I don't have a number back from him, Dan. I tried to call him again today and he wasn't in. We were talking a sign, but we're going to try to do COVID funding for that. But again, so it shouldn't impact the town, but it was something that if we don't get to do it out of COVID funding this year, we might bring back. And we're talking like a large
Electrical
round
sign for
mount
posting stuff.
sign actually in front of the town hall, because we've discovered that we really need to have better signage than those little boards with the plastic letters that keep cracking and falling off and being blown over. And in terms of, town hall and voting and hours, and even during COVID, we wished we could put information out. And so we really think that that's something that the town may, we'll bring it to the select board, obviously, but I'm thinking I might try to put it through COVID because it's
So that, what you're talking about is something with removable letters, so.
no, I'm
No, no,
talking
no,
about an
no.
electronic
Electric
sign.
Would that be something like they have up at the high school
Yes,
when you come into the parking lot? That
You
sounds.
Yeah.
put something on the top to identify the town, it can be
Yeah,
designed,
and
and
then
then there would
It's
be a
all
board
electronic
that's
as far as,
programmed.
correct.
Yeah.
It would have the events of the week, so to speak, and anything that's comes up like, okay, elections, May 4th, town meeting, May 3rd, that sort of stuff.
Caucuses in the future,
Okay,
You know,
so.
special
okay, I think-
meetings, those kinds of things.
I
I
think
just
I
wanted to
got it.
alert
What-
you.
The
Something
reason
that,
the reason this came about as far as doing that, a lot of people in town still do not have access to computers. They don't necessarily read the recorder anymore. We were using these little message boards outside that were kind of like archaic as far as doing that. We did get the use of the Kiwanis's little thing there that had stickers on it, but that kind of like is more of a detracts a little bit. So we want something that's kind of brings us into like the 21st century that would be programmable either by myself or by the town secretary as far as doing that. I would probably be programming most of it for upcoming events, or it'd be linked to the webpage, depending on how we can do that, so that people who are driving by or people that want to know more things when we're closed, it would be out there for them.
Okay, so for now, you're gonna try COVID money.
Right, right. So I don't think it's going to impact, but if something comes back and we discover or decide we can't do it that way, I just don't anticipate putting an article in and asking for funding.
We kind of have a backup if we had to do that, but we're not going to use that if we don't have to.
Yeah, well, that would be a town meeting, but we could do that at special. It's an already existing funding source we could ask to transfer from, but we would wait till special to ask for that. But we just want to kind of throw that out there in case we come back. You're not completely like, what sign? What are you talking about? Where'd that come from? That we've kind of given you a heads up that we're kind of looking into it.
Okay,
Do we have any idea of the cost of a sign like
No,
that?
that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for it. I did speak to someone at one of the companies. Once I get a sense of the cost, I can determine whether or not, how much bidding I have to do, whether I get quotes or bids but I don't have a number. So it's hard for me to know how to procure it just at this time.
okay. How do the members want to handle the school budget? I mean, well, one of you asked me, are we through with Monday night meetings after tonight? And it's been quite a stretch for us. We've got to resolve it.
If for some reason it went up considerably, I think that we'd want to get more involved and we want to have more of a discussion as why. We know what their budget is now. If it should decrease, that's fine with me. But they basically have not shown us exactly why they need any kind of an increase. That's the only thing that bothers me.
Well, if it stays the way it is now, and I expect this is a revote of what they did previously, it's going up, what, 5-point-something%, Andrea?
Yeah, and that's what's in the model, correct?
Yes. Now, they'll say that last year they dropped it back because I think there was a significant drop in transportation costs with the not attending school.
It's going up 5.02% for Northfield and an overall 4.72% for the whole budget.
Okay, thank you. So, but I mentioned that one time here, and Jack had figured out the percentages, and so they said they were just making up from the previous year. Well, it didn't come out that way.
We're getting them into trouble before.
I'm sorry.
Didn't they get into trouble before because they're trying to make up for other years that they were needed to have funds for?
Well, last year we didn't have our town. Let's see, they had set the figures by the time we had our town meeting, and so I don't know. And our enrollment is dropping, so I think we may not get any more information. I mean, what they've done, if you've watched any of their meetings, they've talked about the reason. Now, first it was about the 6th grade. Well, then they've changed their mind. The 6th grade is not moving over. However, some of the positions that were going to have to be duplicated at the elementary school and at the high school because of the move, now they're saying, well, they still want the new positions over at Pioneer as well. So there isn't a total decrease because of the 6th grade not moving that there might be. So what concerns me is, okay, that's this year. When the 6th grade does move in another year, then what? And those positions uh, taking place this year, whether sixth grade moves or not, and then not needed next year? Or
I'm
will
not
they-
sure why they would need so much of a change. I mean, the positions in the sixth grades go or move with them.
Yeah,
So there might be some added expense to getting some classrooms in there, but the biggest expense is usually personnel. And wouldn't you be moving personnel? And in fact, there might be some economy of scale taking small sixth grade classes and putting them together. You might even be able to cut a staff person in theory. I don't know the numbers. I'm just saying, why would there be an added expense? I mean, I don't understand the logic, or at least I haven't been explained the logic.
Now,
They
the
should
only,
not be costing much more money in terms of staffing.
the only thing
teachers
I
go
could
with
maybe
them.
justify would be the fact that it might be a little bit more in transportation, but that if they come in at a different time, they might have to run more buses. But what I would like
I
to
don't think they're
know,
changing the time. They would start with, as they become basically middle schoolers, is
okay,
what happens. Sixth grade becomes middle school.
I would like to have maybe them, if population is going down in the school, I would like to see how they can justify an increase in their budget. And if they can justify it, that's fine. If they cannot easily justify it, then there's something wrong there.
well, what do we call justification? I mean, they've had their meetings and of course, they're not in-person meetings. I don't know that they use Zoom. They have probably something else, but that's all right. But there is a way of signing up to be included in the meeting. There's a way of signing up to ask to speak. And they have citizens' concerns at the beginning of the meeting. And the Bernardston people have been, the finance committee chair, I know, has done the same. She's been involved in the meetings and she's asked to speak. The select board in Bernardston has, I know one of them has written comments and questions about it and asked things that, looking for answers. And so what are we saying, you know, about it? We need more information and so forth, but here we are, we're at the end of the time limit. We've got to finish things up. So I don't know what more, you know, they'll.
Well, right now, I think there's not too much that we can do. We can't hold their, feet to the fire because of things going on. But, if they, like justification, okay, we're seeing less students, but the technology, we have more students that require more needs and that sort than we did. That's justification. If they just put a figure on, well, we got so many students, we want to, this is what's going to cost to educate them, then, just break it down. We've seen the tech school do this. I don't think they've looked at the population and said, okay, our population is going down. We've got to kind of do something about the population. And if the population is going down, do we need as many teachers? Do we need, there's certain things they should look at possibly cutting. Maybe they have. And if they have, I'd like to know that.
Well, their meetings are shown so that you can look at the meetings after the fact on Bernardston-Northfield cable television. And they've attempted to give explanations at these meetings to the school committee members and so forth. And then there's the budget subcommittee of the school committee, and then they report to the school committee. And so I'm sure they'll just be just repeating what they've already said. So I think an effort would need to be made if you don't have enough information to either watch the meetings or something like that. I don't know what more we can do.
And can we ask that our school committee come before the finance committees of the towns, just like tech school has been doing? To justify, I mean, they put this stuff out, but we don't get a chance to ask questions and get immediate answers, et cetera. Is there something we can do to say, hey, we need you or your representative to be at a finance committee to explain to us? That seems to be the problem. They make these decisions and yeah, you can go versus Zoom and you can maybe listen in on their meetings, but there isn't going to be a give and take like there might be with somebody right in front of us.
There's been turnover, Tony, on our representation. Of course, we have 3, and last fall there were 2 new ones elected. And since the one that had been on was chair, and she has resigned from the school committee now. And Nathan has advertised that he's looking for nominations to fill that position. There are still 2 other women representing Northfield on the school committee. And one of them was elected chair. She was newly elected to the committee last fall, and now she's chair. And yes, I suppose we could invite them to come and give us a report on the finance. But I'm still concerned about the timeline here, taking a position on it.
Well, I think we're locked into what they give us this year, but let me ask all of us, I think if we were asked about the budget that we are creating, we would be able to sit down and with great confidence be able to support the budget that we are creating. Now, if you're on a school committee and you're confident that your budget is correct and it's, justifiable, they should feel very comfortable and say, yes, this is why we feel that we need these funds. Very easy. I feel comfortable with our budget. I feel comfortable that we've done our due diligence. We've questioned everybody we possibly could. So if anybody on the street ever asked me about our budget, I could explain it to them and be very confident about it. School committee members, if they are on the budget committee or are supporting their budget as far as doing that, should be able to do the same exact thing. To not come in front of us to say something tells me something. Why? We're not here we just want to know that you feel comfortable with the budget. You guys were elected by the voters of the town of Northfield. And we that's what we voted you for. We voted you to look after our interests. And that's all I'm saying that we should ask them to do.
I think we should have started earlier on that.
Probably.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But again,
of course, they're elected by all 4 towns.
true.
So,
I think, well, excuse me. I think we just got to support what they have given us as far as that, because again, it's late into the process, like it is every year, as far as doing that. And maybe next year, with things being a little bit better, we could ask them to, come sit down with us and, give us a little kind of an overview of how they go about doing their budget, how exactly like we go about doing our budget. And then we would feel comfortable that what they're giving us is, absolutely what they need to have, just like we do.
there was a change, let's see, last year and this year, that it used to be when there was a budget subcommittee, they had the chairs of the departments in or the principals or whatever to support, to bring in their budgets. And now with the finance director, she does the interviewing and discussion with them. And it's not brought before the full budget subcommittee. I had signed in on a couple of the budget subcommittees that way. But I understand the concern, Dan, and I'm concerned too about how they arrive at their figures. But the greater concern that I have is that we've got to wrap up this budget and get it. There's still printing to be done and that sort of thing, and reviews of this, and a lot to be done. So that's my concern. How do you feel, Andrea, and any further time? We're about at the end of the rope, aren't we, on time?
Well, I mean, certainly in terms of me starting to put this together, I mean, the articles that go out won't have money in them. So, obviously that could change, but you do kind of want to have a sense of where your budget falls. I mean, in listening to this, I hope you have better luck. The select board tried desperately over a year ago to get the school committee to come and meet with them, and they refused. So, or at least their members from Northfield, and they said no, they wouldn't come, that the select board could come to their meetings, and that was the end of that. Now, it was a different era, and there was a lot of contention over the superintendent hiring, so maybe they've rethought that position or taken a step back, and we've had some changeover in personnel, so it might be nice to cut them the benefit of the doubt in hopes that, you know, maybe they would do that. My experience in Buckland is the school committee always came once a year at budget time to just talk about, this is where we think the budget's headed, and, you know, what do you guys think? And, you know, and everybody, they said, you know, you want too much? No, we don't want it. We've got all these needs. I mean, it always went that, but at least they came. Sometimes the superintendent came with them. When I was in Conway, the superintendent always came. But at least in Buckland, the school committee, at least two members of the school committee usually came.
Yeah.
So I don't
Well,
think it's unusual. I mean, the Franklin
no.
Tech superintendent comes to see you, so.
We have, you know, the tech expects to come every year. In fact, they reach out first and ask, when can I set up a time for them? And so
And they see a
forth.
lot more towns than just the 4, so.
19.
Right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it might be worth saying, look, we're not trying to be adversarial. We just think that maybe while you're even in the budget development process, when you're presenting your preliminary budget, is a good time for you guys to then go around and just kind of meet with the finance committees and just say, hey, this is what we're presenting, why we're presenting it. We'd like to hear directly from you.
I think it'd be a good routine to establish.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a heavy lift.
No. One thing that happened that I have heard of, got a copy of actually, was that the finance director sent out to the school committee members in February some information that was public information on state records, but it told each town, it told what our savings were and whether we had debt or not. And so she called it, you know, our ability to pay our assessment. Well, as we know, there's a lot more to whether we have savings and stabilization and whether we have debt or not, as to whether we can afford our assessment or not. Look at what we've got for requests this year. We've got highway truck and another piece of equipment for the highway department. We've got road work that needs money. Look at all the capital items that we've got here. And so by her presenting that to school committee members as the basis for our ability, it was totally off the wall as far as I'm concerned. That I just think that was out of their territory to be getting into whether we can afford it or not. That's up to us to decide.
That's why meeting with your school committee members, you might be able to say, yes, this is what it looks like, and here's what we have in savings. But remember, we're saving up for a multi-million-dollar emergency services facility to house 3 critical town departments. They
Yes.
would hear that, they would understand that if they met with you.
I did make a comment on that at the end of the budget subcommittee meeting briefly, because there'd been a problem with getting connected up to it and so forth. So the superintendent called on me at the end of the meeting. Okay, how do we want to?
The last thing is the sewer repair article that was added since your last meeting.
Yes.
I know that doesn't affect the tax rate, but that is something that actually got added because it got requested of me last week as well, at the end of last week. So I forgot, and I just looked up on my spreadsheet and said, it doesn't match by $25,000. And then I looked up and there's nothing in the finance committee recommendation column for the sewer Mill Street repair. So I just remembered that you guys might
Yes.
want to have
Okay.
that discussion.
Now, do they have money in their reserves for that? Or are they going to be borrowing?
No, this is a $25,000 estimated project, and they're certified at $191,000.
Okay,
So they're proposing to take it from their enterprise fund.
okay.
Just wanted
So-
you guys to be aware of it.
We should take a vote whether we're supporting that or not. I see no reason not to support it.
it's a project to repair where there's a critical problem way down deep, and also to install a manhole, I believe, because there's an 800 foot run with no manhole, which partially has made this repair the critical problem that it is. So,
Dan Campbell makes a motion to support the article.
I, Bernie Parada, second that motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to support the sewer article. Any discussion? All is in favor?
Tony
Aye.
says aye.
Okay, all right. I still need to have us decide on whether we're supporting the school or whether you're going to say we're not going to make a decision, or how we're going to handle it.
Lois, I just want to ask again, this is from, forgive me, I don't have the experience you do or some or all the other members. Are we required to support that portion of the budget? Can we just say we're, is that, if we don't support that portion, does it send a whole omnibus, basically cancel that omnibus?
No.
Or no, it doesn't? Okay. Well, that's the thing is that, obviously they're going to direct the situation. We're just on the sidelines going to be responsive to what they're doing. We've also run out of time for budget discussions, and they've made no effort to even want to communicate with the finance committee, which has been something we've done now for a couple of years now. They haven't been very responsive, as much as the tech school is, to coming before us and giving us excellent data and an excellent presentation. I don't know why the school committee is so reluctant or not, or the administration, to want to come forward and meet with us, at least give us, their ideas and proposals, like Dan says, in advance, even if they don't have the final budget figures ready. We're sort of like a rock and a hard place, there's nothing nothing really we can do. We'll have to approve it, and we can't force the school committee to come before us, and come with their rationale or, the reasoning for their increases. But I think they should come before us. We should put the invite to them, and they should give us the courtesy of coming before us. And the fact that they haven't done so, and basically they haven't really communicated with us at all, is quite, it's quite concerning, and also quite, I think that shows that they really don't wish to, discuss the issues with the financial issues with us.
I think we need to approach it maybe a different way. I think we have to invite them over for a simple discussion as to where they think that they're are deficient as far as doing it in their budget, or where their budget needs to be as far as doing that. And if they can say we need to do this because, and they can support that, then we're working at it together as far as doing that. Right now, we're just kind of sitting back, waiting for them to make the decisions, and then saying yes, because we can't really say nay. So I would just like to open up a less adversarial discussions with them, letting them know that they're not the only thing we have to worry about in our town. We have other departments that have needs as far as doing that they may not have anticipated as far as doing it, although they should, because they come from different towns and every town has some of the same issues. But if work on it somewhat together, but let them know how we feel, and we're willing to support them. We just want to have some input into it. And with that said, I would support their budget only because we have no other choice, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's about that. As far as, I have to make a recommendation about the omnibus. If we did it this way, I'd have to say, with the exception of the school budget. However, now remember, our responsibility is to our voters to the law requires us to make recommendations to our voters. Now, that's not saying specifically you will do this. However, if we go to town meeting and we just say we don't have a recommendation, you're leaving it wide open. The voters then don't know how we have, whether we've considered it, what we've thought about, and so forth. And I think that's sort of abdicating our responsibility.
True. I wouldn't want to put us in that kind of position as far as doing that, but I would like to just, I wouldn't say put on notice, but I think that we need to sit down with the committee and just say, hey, come on. We're in the same boat. We have bills that we have to pay. Other departments have bills they have to pay. We understand you do too, but let's, do it together a little bit.
I
But
do
I
have
will
to say
support,
though, in my experience, that the few times that I have seen a town or finance committee not take an action, I'm not saying pro or con, like take no action, it has engendered questions.
Yeah.
That is the one thing it does do, is if you say we vote the whole omnibus, we support it, except for the school where we give no recommendation, yay or nay. First thing someone's going to do is go, why aren't you giving a recommendation on the school? So that is one way to bring attention to it. Sometimes if you just throw it in and accept it, you won't. If obviously if you don't accept it, then you'll get a lot of people who'll go, oh, you don't like the school. But that will also engender conversation, don't get me wrong. But I have seen them take no action just to get the article, get it attention.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been thinking the same thing, Andrea. What can we say? We don't, we support the omnibus with the exception of the school committee budget. And
So
as you
we
said,
take
I
no
think that would
recommendation.
engender,
Yeah.
somebody's
And
going
then-
to ask a question.
Right, and then you decide what your answer to that is. We don't take a position because we didn't feel we had enough information. We didn't take a
Exactly.
position because we thought the
Right.
numbers came in too late and we didn't have a chance to question them. We didn't take a position because we felt we didn't get our questions answered. We didn't take a position because they don't come before us like the other school and talk to us about whatever your discussion or points that you want to make at that point could be a response to, well, why didn't you take a position?
would
And someone
make
could
it
say, why
if-
didn't you vote against it? And say, well, because we didn't felt we had enough information to say maybe they
Yeah.
had legitimate reasons, but they're not talking to us as much as we would like to talk to them.
But
mean,
I
that's-
feel still a little uneasy about this because
Yeah.
we have not, you said the select board invited and tried them last year. That I
Yes.
understand. We haven't tried to get them to come in. We haven't done anything. We haven't initiated anything on our own to educate ourselves this year. I've tried to get in on I have been in on a couple of meetings, but I haven't been able to do all of them.
Well,
And
you still have time to invite them. You don't have to vote that decision tonight. After they take their vote, you could then reach out to them and say, hey, we're still sitting on the fence here. How about some of you from Northfield come to our finance committee and explain what this budget is about and why the numbers are, because we're going to have to take a vote and we're on the fence with it. I mean, you can still invite them, even if you can't affect the number at this point.
Nathan, do you have any comment about this?
Is
Nate?
he in?
Yeah, he might take a minute.
Yeah,
to-
yeah.
Sorry, just
He's
had to take a minute
muted.
to unmute. I do think it's important that the finance committee give a recommendation. I think that recommendation could be that town meeting needs to hear more about the school budget and what it is, because you felt that you didn't have enough information to say yes or no. That's a recommendation, that we need to listen to the school committee more and understand the budget better. It's tough that there's nothing that compels them to come and explain themselves to the finance committee. The folks that are elected in there, their fiduciary responsibility is not to the town of Northfield. It's to the school committee. They're supposed to be doing what's best for the school, not what's best for Northfield. But they're all also taxpayers. They need to make sure that the school can be paid for. Frankly, I do, not between you and I, obviously, because this is very public, but I'm a little surprised that there's kind of there's 5 primary funders for the school, and Northfield is one of the biggest funders. The state is another big funder, the other towns, right? And very minimal communication between the funder of the school and the school seems problematic to me. You would think that there would be more information flow. This has also been a pretty challenging time for the school committee. Been some contentious stuff that they've been working through between moving the students and the budget, and some things will slip in that. There's been a lot of turmoil. So I can understand as volunteers like the rest of us that sometimes they're not able to do as good as they would like to as well. They may not be able to reach out as much as they want. So, I don't know. I don't think you should kind of hold out entirely and not give a recommendation, but that recommendation doesn't have to necessarily be a you should pass this or you should not pass this. It could be a we think you should hear from the school some more about what the budget is and make a decision, because we didn't have the information that we felt was necessary to make this on our own.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can, okay, the other concern I have would be that plugging a figure in there so that you can finish up the budget, the allocation of the funds we have available. So maybe we can, well, we'll talk with the select board when they come in. Maybe together we can invite them, our representatives, and maybe the superintendent to come and explain to us what the budget is all about, and then see if we want to make a recommendation. How would that be? How do you feel about that? It's basically what you're talking about, Dan, really.
Yeah, the only thing is, yeah, and maybe, we're into it a little bit too late in the season here. But what we wanted maybe is encourage an earlier dialogue as far as doing that, so we don't get into this position next year as far as doing that. And I mean, we don't want to basically tell them what they want. They have to have their budget. I just want them to be aware of what projects or what we have in our own towns that need to be taken care of, along with their budget. If they're looking at what we have in reserve and that sort of stuff and saying, oh, they can afford to do this, well, the sky's the limit. No, they don't. They may not understand some of the different departments that have needs as far as doing that in order for our town to run correctly. And I think maybe because of circumstances, because of different things this year, and we maybe couldn't have gotten together as much, but possibly next year, maybe we want to sit down before budget season even starts, a month before, and just say, hey, listen, these are some of the things that we're concerned with. How can we work on them together? And that's it. But maybe we do something next year, and this year we basically go with what they have presented. I mean, if we want to add something to it, if we want to send a message, that may be more adversarial than we want to do if we want to try to work together. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do, just to open up dialogue. We tried to do that. We were in the process of doing that, and then it got away from us because of COVID, I think.
Yeah.
So, and with that, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Okay. I do know that Bernardston's questions that one selectman had and so forth. After that, their PBRS finance director offered to participate in one of their meetings. Well, they are having in-person meetings, and she's working from Florida now. So I don't know whether they're going to take her up on that or not. But let's say that we'll bring that up here in a few minutes when we have the select board here and see. I like your idea, Dan, that we're not looking to have an adversarial relationship with them. We want to be on terms where we can exchange information and maybe an appreciation of each other's problems that we're facing financially. Andrea needs a figure to go ahead with, though, and finish up the operating budget.
Well, I would recommend we use what they have here right now, because that's what they've presented us.
All right, anybody else?
Anything, if unless it changes drastically as far as doing that, but it sounds like they were going to approve the same figures they gave us before.
Anything
does-
else you put in the budget is simply just a no vote. I mean, in effect, because if you vote something different, it has nothing to, that's not part of their formula, then you're just actually a no vote.
Yeah,
Well, no,
You don't
well,
get your,
again, if
you don't
they-
get your number, you get to be a no. I mean, that's how that works when you have a.
well, that's
regular
true
school
too.
district.
Then basically the other three towns could outvote us or whatever.
And if the other towns approve it, yes, then you're on the hook anyway.
Yeah.
And you might have to go back and re-vote it if you vote lower.
Yeah.
If you vote before them, I don't know the order. I'd have to find out the order. You might actually have to go
Well,
back. Although I think, I'm not sure you have to. I think you're actually automatically supposed to, I don't know, I'm not sure.
If
You have to
multiple
re-vote it.
towns vote a lower number, the school committee can actually decide to go with a lower number that fits within everybody's vote and just
Sure.
ahead.
That
That's
doesn't
not
happen
necessarily
often.
a great reason to do it, but somebody's going to have to take a revote if we vote a different number. The town might have to have a special town meeting to figure out where to come up with the money that they have to pay anyway, or the school might need to have another vote to set a lower budget. If another town,
it's 3 out of 4, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
So do you feel comfortable that the $223,489 is what they're going to up the budget by?
that's the figure that,
That's the figure that they're going to, are they going to, do you think they're going to change that with their vote tonight or
I
whatever?
don't think, tomorrow night, no, I don't think that's going to change at all.
Okay, then basically I would say we go with this and then we try to open up more of a dialogue next year.
Yeah, okay,
I think we can't do too much about it this year, but I think we have to start the dialogue this year somehow.
okay,
Let people know that we don't feel comfortable with having enough information to enthusiastically recommend this budget. I think the discussion has to be brought up this year. And yes, continue through the next budget year, but we got to start somewhere.
yeah, that's true. And I'm okay with that. Are the rest of you? How do the rest, Sue?
Yeah, I agree with Tony. We've got to start somewhere and, it's just going to keep going on and on and on. I know in the past we have tried to get them to come in to talk with us before COVID. The year before that, I know we tried to get them to come in and nobody came in to talk with us. So we've got to start somewhere and somehow we've got to prod them into, coming in and as Dan said, in a manner that's not confrontational.
Yes, yeah.
Well,
It
you don't
was-
really want to do that on town meeting floor though, do you? You want to probably start with a letter to them and saying, hey, we see your budget, we're not 100% behind it. We want to discuss this more next, something like this going forward. We want to be able to have an open discussion going from this time forward. Or do you want to bring it up in town meeting and then it becomes more of an issue than it becomes, or not an issue, but people will, like you said, they'll say, why?
I think it's
everybody
good
knows
that people ask why.
And I don't mind asking him ask why, but I want to be able to answer this because we didn't have enough information. That's the only thing we could come
Mhm.
up with now.
Which is fine. And that's going to put some pressure, I think, on the school committee. How else do you do it? You don't do it with a letter saying, we really have to talk more. I don't
Well-
think that's going to do anything.
It's difficult to make a decision when you don't have the information to make the decision. And I guess that's, part of the thing. We don't have adequate information to say yes or no to this budget, really. Because we don't know what the bottom line number is.
Yeah, I still have a little problem here with the fact that what have we done to avail ourselves of that information?
Mhm.
We've got to extend ourselves a little bit too.
Yeah, I understand.
So, okay, it's 7:00 now. Are we going to just, we'll take it forward that way, that we'll talk to the select board here about
Mhm.
requesting them to come, and we might as well meet together, you know, the select board and the finance committee and discuss this. And, but putting it, for the present, putting the figure in, that's the requested amount, that's what it turns out, if they confirm it tomorrow night. Right?
Yes. I
Okay,
think we have to actually at this point in time.
okay, all right. I think we'll continue now with the select board present. I see Alex is there. B is there. Sandra's there. Yeah, are we ready to start, or is Heath coming, do you know?
I don't get,
I don't know. I haven't heard from Heath.
Okay. What we'll be talking about tonight, I believe you've been given copies of this from Sandra, from yeah, Andrea is the latest one, and that was, we got it last night, I believe. But why don't we talk about what we were just talking about now, and that was about the information as to whether we can recommend this school budget or not. And we're talking about the fact that we don't have a lot of information about it. And of course, they aren't voting until tomorrow night. They have to re-vote that. And I understand Andrea says that the select board tried last year to get them to come in, get our representatives, I believe, to come in and talk about the budget, and they didn't do it. There's Heath. So what would you think about trying again now for a joint meeting? I mean, if you heard the end of that, I'm concerned about the timing here and making a recommendation, but we still can try to have a dialogue with them about the information about our concerns. I don't know if I don't think you heard what I said earlier, that their finance director sent something out in February, excuse me, to the school committee members, giving her opinion of the four towns' abilities to pay their budget. And actually, that's a little bit out of her jurisdiction, I thought, because it's public information, something you could get from state records, so forth. But she based her recommendation on the fact that how much you had in savings, which is stabilization, and whether you had debt or not. Well, okay. So then you look at our warrant, and we've got a truck for the highway department. We've got another piece of equipment for the highway department. We've got money for road work. We've got a lot of things that don't show up when you look just at savings and debt. So, you know, that's the type of thing that's happening. So how do you feel about, Alex, how do you think about being chairman there, about having to try for a joint meeting?
No, I think we should be having a joint meeting with them. I wish we had more joint meetings with them. I don't think we have enough active executive board / school committee meetings. I know we have a very diverse board. I know Heath has opinions about the way that money should be spent, as well as B does, and as I do. The three of us each have a different opinion to bring. So I think if you get the three of us in a room with the school committee, I think we can have a very productive conversation. And I don't think we have too many of those types of conversations with the school committee. So in regards to the school budget, I would like to see a more firm number before any type of motions are made during select board meetings to give money away to the school. So I would like to see that as well. I don't really know anything else about it at this time, other than what I've been keeping up with on it and what I've been hearing. So
So you want a firm figure from the school committee as to
absolutely,
our assessment,
yeah,
which apparently they're voting tomorrow night. They've got to revote. They had some problems. And so they'll have they've got to have the public hearing, and then they're going to follow it with a school committee meeting tomorrow night to vote it. But every indication seems to be that it's going to be revoting the same thing that they had previously.
okay.
So yeah, officially we won't know until they take that action.
Well,
But
I think the issue is, well, part of the issue is the school committee doesn't seem to be able to function very well. And we've all seen that based on what goes on in those meetings. So I don't really know what we can do going forward to, other than just meeting with them and trying to talk to make that relationship maybe a little bit better. Because it hasn't been very good, and it's kind of demoralizing to not see it work very well.
they have said that they are not accountable to any one town. In other words, we talk about, yes, there are 3 representatives from Northfield and from each of the towns, but they are responsible to the school and to the students. And there really hasn't been good communication
No.
for, I can't remember when we really had good communication with them. So I think this is something that, why don't we try to proceed with setting up some sort of a meeting?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Select Board, Finance Committee, and the school committee members. Now, you're probably aware that one person from Northfield has resigned, and she was the chair. But they've had an election, and another one from Northfield has been elected chair. So, and there are still 2 representatives from Northfield. And I think, in my opinion, it'd be our 2 or 3, if we have 3, that we would want to talk to. Is that your feeling?
Yeah. No, we should be. Like I said, we don't talk to them enough. So this would be a great time to really bring them together and have the discussion. They are elected officials just like us. We answer to the same people, and we should be in the same room having a discussion.
Okay. Sounds about like what we were thinking along those lines. Andrea, do you want to, and Alex, you want to have Andrea try to set up a meeting?
I would like for her to do that. Yes, that would be nice.
You want to do it as a part of a select board meeting, or are we doing it as a separate meeting or part of a finance committee meeting, or maybe just a Monday night meeting? That, how do you want to proceed as a meeting?
Okay. Well, I don't want to just make all the calls here. So I want to call on my colleagues Heath and B and see what they would think in regards to that. I would like to do it at the town hall. It's where I'm most comfortable to do those types of meetings. But I'm open for anything really. I mean, Zoom seems to work as well, but I think there's a different way that people can come across on Zoom than it is in person, and I'd rather do that type of business in person if it's safe enough to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think having in-person stuff as much as possible, especially an icebreaker kind of meeting like we're going to have with the school, because it'll be almost 2 years now that I've been on the board. We haven't seen a single person from the school district, and we've invited them several times. And I know COVID's kind of thrown a wrench in the whole thing, but I'd really like to have a face-to-face with some of those people myself and get more of a collaboration going. I work for the Gilmontague School District, and I'm in front of their town votes to pass certain articles for my department, never mind the whole school. So, I mean, we just don't have the same level of communication. Me as a department director goes in front of the town to explain why I need things from the school district. And I think that level of communication, I don't know why it's not present here, but I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be. And this is a good step in that direction. So I think if we can do it in person, it's the best way to do it. If not, then Zoom is better than nothing.
B?
I'm fine with meeting either Monday or Tuesday. I think it's important. The only, in my 7 or 8 months on the board, I think the finance director has been in once, and that was to talk about COVID funding. This is the largest piece of the budget, so it bears consulting and cooperating and collaborating. So I'm all for, and would certainly make time to have that meeting, either in person or on Zoom. And now we have Zoom in the town hall, in the select board room, so we could do a hybrid too.
I cannot remember when the school committee members have ever come before any of us.
Wow.
Seems like we've tried, and the select board, different select boards have tried to get them in. And maybe a few years back, I think they did come before the select board. I can remember something like that. But anyway, all right. Andrea, you need to know, I'm not saying it come to a finance committee meeting. I think set up a meeting that is convenient for them and the select board, and then we'll see if we can, and we'll follow suit. How would that be?
I'll see what I can do.
Well, this is what I don't understand. They want us to give them money so that they can educate kids and have a school system. So in a way, I mean, I've always looked at doing this as kind of like a business deal, kind of like, this is what our numbers are. This is why we need money from you. You would think that if someone is doing this multi-million-dollar business deal, they'd maybe want to meet with you a couple times, and instead of getting the cold shoulder. So
Yeah, good point. Okay. Then Andrea, you'll see what you can.
Set up, yeah.
Okay, very good. And what else? Oh, we also wanted to, before we get into the other that's already the warrant and so forth, the town clock. We have talked about that tonight in our meeting. Are you people aware of what's going on with the town clock? B, you are?
Yep. Yes. And I read I sorry I wasn't here for your discussion earlier because I was at the vet, but I did look at the information that Andrea sent. So
Yep.
I'm aware of the issue as presented. I think Tony's described it at each of your finance committee meetings for the last 3 meetings.
Yeah.
And I've been in touch with the historical commission member who's been at those meetings as well. So I'm familiar with the clock issue, and now I've seen the paperwork from Andrea about what it would take to get it fixed.
Okay. So what's happening here is that the town clock on the Unitarian Church is not working. And we feel it's a town responsibility. It certainly is. It's the town clock.
Mhm.
The only thing that the town has done since it was electrified, we've made a contribution to that church toward the electricity for housing it there. Now it's not working. So one of their members has had it looked at by an electrician, and he's had some clockmaker look at it for the mechanics of that, and given us some information. I really appreciate the work that he's done to go into this. So there's a possibility of up to $10,000 needed to get this back in working order. And of course, then we feel that we need to do something about maintenance on a regular basis, no question. Something about oiling and all that sort of thing. So we'd like to see an article on, and that's what we've been talking with Andrea about, and supporting an article to have the town clock repaired. And how do you feel about it?
Well, I would be in favor of it. And I don't know if you mentioned, Lois, that it was the first town hall. So that's the historical connection. A lot of people at home might not realize what the connection is with the church and that it was the first town hall for Northfield. So that's the historical portion of it and the connection with the town of Northfield, right?
Colonial days, each town had to have a meeting house at which their town business was conducted and so forth, and it was usually a church.
Mhm.
And that's why it's First Parish Unitarian. And you're right, that was it.
Yeah.
And
So I would definitely be in favor of it.
to me, I've just said that it's an icon in the town, just like our town fountain is. And for those of you that don't know, the town fountain used to be over where Warwick Avenue comes in. It was out nearer the road, and you went either side of the fountain. And then when the road was changed, that was moved. So it's over there near the town hall now. And
It's kind of, wasn't it kind of where that blinking light is now, like right in the middle? You kind of go around it.
if you were going north, you went to the right of the fountain, and if you were going south, out onto Main Street, yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And so this is something that I feel should be maintained, and the Finance Committee feels that.
Mhm. Well, I remember you saying, Lois, at a prior meeting that that I was listening into, that you felt that it was the responsibility of the town to keep that clock going.
Yes.
And I think by investing in it and then, as you said, ongoing maintenance, then it would be well worth it.
Yes, I think so, because the church has housed it for us, for the town, really. And it's not their responsibility financially at all. So how about Alex and Heath? How do you feel?
Why don't you go first, Heath?
Yeah, I mean, it's our responsibility as a town site to take care of it. Any ideas? I mean, have they thrown any preliminary numbers out there? Like, what ballparks are we talking, and how much of an annual cost are we talking?
I don't know on the annual
No.
cost. And these are not firm figures on the repairs either. We're trying to, this man from the church has worked fast here in the last week, I would say, to try to get, he's had an electrician look at it, and he's had the clockmaker come and look at it. And it's because he knows we had a deadline today of warrant articles and we're trying to do it. But no, that would be something we'd have to look into for the future about the annual maintenance cost.
The figures that were thrown out initially were pretty broad. They said anywhere from 3 to 5 for the electrical, 3 to 5,000 for the electrical, and 3 to 5,000 for the repairs to the clock itself. So we voted earlier a sum of $10,000 going on the high end. If it doesn't cost that much, it goes back into the general fund anyway. But we thought the first thing would be to get it working. And then from there, we would be in a better position to figure out what would necessary for maintenance on a yearly basis. Shouldn't need any maintenance for quite a while if we do get it working, but
You'll probably have annual maintenance,
yeah.
but you wouldn't need next year, but you would need after.
Yeah, to spend $10,000, we want to make sure that we know what our annual things are going to be, because the investment could quickly go south if we don't stay up on it. You know, the $10,000 investment could quickly have something go wrong if we're not staying up on annual maintenance. But we should definitely investigate what a service contract might look like, where they just come once a year and just do a checkup on the thing. I think that might be wise of us as well, because if you're throwing that large amount of money at it, and then you go a few years without maintenance, you could be tallying up an even bigger repair subsequent to that other one. So we should definitely have it kind of figured out at the same time we're making a big repair.
And we'd have time to figure that out too. So I agree with what you're saying.
So I keep thinking of a movie that came out called Back to the Future. It has the clock tower. You got to save the clock tower. And I always use like that type of that image of, you know, the clock people in a general area of the town can look up and see the clock chime. I don't know if this clock chimes or not. I've never heard it, but it would be really cool to have a functioning clock in town. I think that's it's kind of like the town watch almost, and hearing a little bit of the historical significance of it, which I wasn't aware of. I don't see the issue. I mean, to one person, 3,000 to 5,000, however much, is a lot of money, and that can be the cost to fix a grandfather clock in the living room sometimes, depending on what's wrong with it. But for a clock that size, it seems to be a pretty good price, in my limited knowledge of clocks. So
I think it was remarkable to find the first issue was find somebody that will do that kind of work, you know, now. So I think we're in agreement then on supporting the article to go forward.
sure.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Who's going to propose that article?
Andrea's going to write it up on there. I don't care.
Tony, why don't you do it?
Fine.
Yeah, we haven't gone through who's going to speak to what article, but
Oh, that's what I meant.
No, they haven't done that yet. So
no, they haven't. You
That would
haven't.
probably
Not
be,
really.
the select board would probably.
Select
do
board
that.
gets most of the general articles, at least initially, as their articles, and then anybody, you know, people can speak to them, whoever.
okay. Now, Andrea, is there anything else? I mean, I'm going to go through the budget and the articles that we've had. Was there any? Oh, do they know about the boiler at the highway department garage?
Probably not, because that only came in 2 weeks ago.
Okay, that's another thing that we're trying to wrap up all the needs for funds here. And because got to divide up the money, we've got to know what the needs are. Okay, so apparently the highway garage, the boiler is wearing through. Is that it? Holes in it and that sort of thing. Now, this was something that's over 10 years old now, and it was put in with the idea that they could, when they cut brush and all that sort of thing, that was going to feed the boiler. So now is that the best arrangement or not? So I think that Tom is getting prices on another wood one or propane, correct?
Yes, and the Energy Committee is pushing very hard for them to go propane because of the BTUs and how that affects the town's energy reporting by burning wood. It's actually
Green
a
community
negative.
stuff.
It's a very negative number in terms of that, but so there's some pressure there. So Tom is looking at both options. Pricing being somewhat different, because if he puts in propane, it would be more expensive because he has to redo some of the system as well as just the boiler.
Yeah, with the wood, they've been able to provide their own fuel for it. So, but he's working on that right now, as I understand it.
Right, he has an idea for the wood system being, 10 to 15, but a propane one would be closer to 40. So he's just put in the higher number as a request. He hasn't given me an updated actual quote yet, but that was what he was beginning to hear, somewhere around 40 or just under 40.
40 being the cost of boiler plus propane, correct?
Well, that would be putting in a new propane system.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'd
then,
have to add propane to his budget for next year.
I'm assuming that would be for this year, but because he didn't request any change in his budget for this year. But yes, it probably would eventually mean a change in fuel costs.
the finance committee has voted to support this. I mean, they've got to have heat over there, there's no question. It's going to be a question though of which is the, not go by what's the cheapest one, what's the best arrangement for that facility.
Mhm.
So you have any thoughts on it? Or I think we're hoping you'll support it. You've got to have heat over there at the highway garage.
Are you asking the select board, Lois?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Well, I work in a garage 3 to 4 days a week working on
Yeah.
cars, and I don't work very well this time of year unless it's warm. It's the way it is. So I don't know really what would be the best situation for a garage of that size.
No.
I was thinking like I don't know if they have a waste oil burner in there so they can burn wasted oil from the trucks. I don't know if that's something they have, but those are always reasonable alternatives when it comes to burning. Besides that, I don't really have a lot to say on it. I mean, Tom's pretty honest and stays up with what needs to be worked on down there and what needs replacing, which is unfortunately a lot of stuff, it seems like, over the years. But it's hard equipment. It gets used. It goes through a lot of laborious material, not just the burners, everything else. So I would just like to know if there's any more options in the time that we have left in determining what would be the best way of getting heat in that garage. Not necessarily the most environmentally friendly, but just to see the economic options, because there are some out there.
Those are the two I believe he has focused on as being the best options for heating this, for a heating system. That's
Okay.
what he's presented, one of those two options.
Has the Energy Committee weighed in? Because this was, the Highway Department was going to be their next, at their last report, the Highway Department was going to be their next area to tackle.
Right, and that's why
So-
when they heard propane, they got very excited, but they have not officially weighed in. No, I do not believe that they've had a meeting to discuss this. They haven't since this whole situation has come to a pricing
Gotcha.
situation.
I'm just wondering if there might be opportunity, to Alex's point about economics and environmental, is there a way to do both? Is there a grant somehow?
Not generally for heating systems and boilers. That's unfortunate. But I mean, not in any of the grants we participate in. We'd have to find something new.
Our role in this has not been anything to do with what is chosen, but we wanted to make sure that we're recommending money to get into the budget for this year to take care of this situation, because if you come in back in 2 or 3 months, money is gone by that time. And so that our role was to say whether we're recommending funding for such a project or not. We didn't get into the detail of what it should be.
Well,
So,
does it make sense to do a place? I mean, I think we're all in agreement that heat is needed. It is, I think, our role to look into the details and ask those questions, especially for the long term as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Who knows what kind of boiler lasts how long? So those sorts of questions would be good. I'm just wondering, since this is my first time through the warrant process, is there a way to put a placeholder and then do a little bit more research and then complete that, or?
well, I think the way it's probably left is that the highway superintendent is coming back to Andrea with figures. Am I
Gotcha.
right, Andrea?
Right. I think at this point in
Okay.
this process, we put a number in, and then, yes, at the point in time that the system has to be done, it's certainly within the select board's purview to ask him to come in and discuss the options.
Yeah.
Maybe the Energy Committee wants to be present at that meeting.
Our concern is to set a high enough figure to encompass whichever plan they come up with.
Right. They just have to fund the request.
Right.
Yeah. So you'll be, the highway superintendent will be reporting through her, and you'll be talking about what the choice is or what the options are for any other funding and that sort of thing. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
So are we proposing that we appropriate the money before they have an actual scope and scale of the project?
Well, if you don't, there's no other, you can't wait a year.
Once you sign the warrant, you have to sign the warrant within a couple of weeks. So, but I'm going to email Tom to see what the update is from him. If he has any newer information on the other, above and beyond the more expensive project that drove the higher end cost. But I think ultimately, if they work the funding in, then yes, I think that the scope of the project and the ultimate project decisions go to the select board.
I'm speaking from experience of taking over a complete nightmare of a department where someone just kind of asked and winged it for numbers, and then I had to pick up the slack after on and had underfunded projects that I've been trying to deal with for 2 years. So just nervous that we go vote through an amount and then we have to go back to the town a year later anyways because a project comes up and we didn't put enough money toward it. This is a boiler project, depending on how bad the infrastructure is. We've just had to do certain work like that, and we thought maybe a boiler or a tank had to be replaced, and as soon as we touched the pipes, it just crumbled to the ground. And it's hard to predict unless you get the engineers in there to figure out exactly how many BDUs you need for the square footage that you're trying to heat and what sort of insulation the building has and how occupied it is. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into selecting a heating system for a building that big. So the cost could be all over the road depending on what gets selected. So unless we appropriate a huge amount of money, then we might not have enough to cover it.
We're waiting we depend on the rest of you to give us the figures. And then we decide whether we want to recommend that or not. And we've been given a figure and we hope it's on the high side and we're recommending it. So.
But I'll touch base with Tom and ask him to update you guys. I mean, you'll see him tomorrow anyway, but it's not on the agenda.
She says you guys, she means the select board.
Yes, the select board.
I wholeheartedly support it because I was just there meeting with Tom today, and I hear how much time they spend in that building during the winter because there's a lot of maintenance that they do on the machines, and they spend a huge chunk of time for many months in that building. So it's pretty important that those guys stay nice and warm while they're doing the work with their hands. There's nothing worse than trying to work with your hands and having a tool smash into a very cold finger or something. So we want those guys taken care of.
Okay. Speaking of planning ahead and for money needs, monetary needs and so forth, it's something that, well, it's hard to do. It's hard to plan for. So, but I just wanted to let you know that we have done that in the police department this time. Are they aware, Andrea? I think they probably are, about the no more part-time police academy. It's only full-time academy.
But there's a change in the police. Yeah, there's been a lot of information out about that. Or, we don't necessarily have to go to full-time. You just can't have, there's no more part-time training. So your full-time, your part-timers who are trained now will have a transition to a different kind of training. And then after that, you won't be able to have part-time trained officers anymore.
Right.
They can still work part-time, but they will be full-time trained ultimately.
That some people misunderstand that and think that this means you won't have part-time officers. Well, we will. We can still have part-time officers, but
if they want to be part-time, yes.
Yeah, it's the training. And so that's an unknown. Andrea's going to you're going to participate in a training session on that.
There's lots of sessions going on about that. I think the Franklin County Selectmen's Association meeting on the 25th, 6 o'clock. I think that is a big session for, I'm actually in one in the morning for the Mass Municipal Agency, but there is another one in the evening for the Selectmen's Association.
Yeah, Selectmen's Association is,
talk about it.
Well, I'm a member, so I'm going to participate in that. That's a Zoom meeting. And that's some speakers, but the local speaker would be John Pachorik, the chief in Deerfield on that. And that's to get information. So what the Finance Committee has done, because we couldn't get there's no firm figure yet. You don't know what this is going to cost the town. And we can't wait and say, oh, gee, we need this much money and so forth. So we're not allocating it to the police budget. The Finance Committee has a reserve fund that we can use for emergencies. So we upped that this year by $10,000 with the anticipation that if there's something needed, we can fund our police department accordingly. But we might not even need it. We don't know what will be required in the way of the training and the cost. So that's the only thing we've gone ahead with and planned ahead, but we don't want to leave you caught without the way to handle this. And you don't know any more yet about it, do you, Andrea, till you go to this? No.
No, there's a lot of talk, but I think the bill was passed in response to a lot of public factors, and I'm not completely sure that a lot of people know how it's going to play out. There's still a lot of jockeying going around. They didn't know about the training. They're still arguing how many hours it's going to be, who's going to offer it, who's going to be in charge of it, who's going to pay for it, who's going to, they've started a new agency that's going to track officers between departments. I mean, there's a lot, and I don't think it's all been put in place.
I don't think it's been all thought through yet, and you're right, it's reaction to things that have happened. And then they pass something like this for statewide, and it's a totally different effect for some of us out this way than in the cities and that sort of thing. So any questions that you might have on that as to why or what's going on?
I have one quick one as far as them needing more money. There has been $28,000 that's been unspent this year and the prior year for their school resource officer. So I'm sure that those funds could be used for that purpose as well, because I know
There's a school resource officer now.
Got the school resource officer. What that was put in there last year to, in case they did something with it. And of course, they haven't had this school over there and so forth, but the school resource, there is a school resource officer to start when they do go back.
He's already employed. I believe he's working.
Yeah, we have yes, we appointed I think his name's Kimball, Officer Kimball, to the school resource officer position. He works like 5 jobs, so I really hope that he can make as much use out of the position as he possibly can. So, but I just sure hope the money gets used.
Yeah. Well, the money is there, ready for it and to cover it. And what we do is appropriate the money, and then the school reimburses us back of it. So that's why it might look larger, but there is, then we get some back from the school after the fact. We come up with a full amount. Okay, any other thoughts on that? Okay, now we'll get to this and the operating budget. So I was going to talk about that. We're all involved in serving our voters, so we want to discuss with you what we're prepared to present as our recommendations for the coming fiscal year. And our moderator, as you noticed here, Nathan, is here with us tonight too, to go over things so we can really get prepared for town meeting. We've been meeting with our individual department heads and chairs of boards and committees to discuss their needs for fiscal 22. This is the way we operate every year. By Massachusetts general law, the Finance Committee is required to make recommendations to the voters on matters before them. Mainly, we've stuck to the financial part of it, but we could make recommendations on others. In fact, there are a couple of articles here. Are they financial, when we're going to tax them or not, and so forth. So we are required to make recommendations. You need to know that we don't just rubber stamp anything that comes before us. We've been meeting since early January, except for a couple of holiday Mondays, and to do these meetings with all the department heads and so forth. Our concern when we go over their requests for their budgets is any justification for any increases that they have. And we found that they've been very conservative, as usual, in their requests, and they've justified any increases to our satisfaction. We'll cover the omnibus, which is the operating budget, and then I'll cover the special article request. The largest, we've talked about schools, so that's the largest item in any town's budget. The tech school has been before us and always gives a very professional presentation, and we've got the finalized budget from them, as Andrea has just said. The only request for, and you'll see now, as I understand it, you have received this, And when I talk about the omnibus, that's the budget. So we're talking about the figures starting, this is Article 5, and this starting on page 12. Lists all the accounts, and that's what I'm talking about here now. And you've also got detail, the breakout detail of those items, but these are the line items that make up the omnibus. So within that, there's only one request that we're not recommending, and that was a Conservation Commission request to reinstate $2,812 to their budget. The rest of their budget we're recommending, but that amount was taken out last year, I think. I don't think it was 2 years ago, was it, Andrea? Whatever.
No, I don't think so. I think the first year was last year.
Last year.
When you fully funded the other position.
Yes, and I'll explain that to you. So it's for administrative support for that committee. And so what's happened is there are various committees that we have. Now, we have our secretary we've had for years, administrative assistant, whatever you want to call it. And the Board of Health has had one for years. But we have other committees, and we recognize the fact that as a member of a committee, it's very difficult to be taking the minutes of the meeting, especially with some of our committees that have legal matters before them. So we've tried to provide clerical support and someone to take the minutes, someone to do filing, that sort of thing. And so Andrea came up with the idea a year ago that since they were having trouble trying to hire somebody for each individual committee that needed one, maybe combine them and see if she could find somebody that would be interested in working for more than one committee and do the work that was involved. And she was able to hire somebody. And let's see, I've forgotten. The job description is called the board's clerk. And she was able to hire a person to serve the committees. And she's had them doing, this person doing, I'm going to let you explain. Why don't you tell what this one does, Andrea?
Sure, we figured if we got somebody who had some regular set number of hours, then we could fill the position and they could get not only experienced in just knowing the boards, but in their files and such. So we did a 10-hour a week because boards, sometimes they met, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they had, one meeting a month, sometimes they had two. It was very hard to budget their secretarial support. And then also for that person to remain. So a lot of boards churned through. So this person takes minutes, types the minutes, sends the minutes to the committees, edits them. She attends committee meetings, some by Zoom. She's done it from recording if she has conflicts, because obviously this is a part-time position. So there are times she could have conflicts. And then she types those up and makes all that. But if there's a lull where there's no work like that, that's her primary function. We instituted cleaning up the land use room, instituting a central filing system to get some of the committees filed together in a central map and lot filing system, like the planning board and the Concom, so that you could pull the file for a particular map and lot and you would get all the actions in it from those committees. So she's been doing that. She's been working on mapping. We've been going through all the maps in those rooms that were filed up and stuck on top, not the building inspectors, but actual maps for plans and projects. And sometimes we had multiple sets that came to different boards. Sometimes we had 25% and then 75 and then final as-built. So we just didn't need all that stuff. We want the as-built. We don't need 3 sets because they went to 3 different committees. Everyone would just shove them in the room. So this person's been doing a lot of that work, instituting filing systems and going through the work and really cleaning that room out. We'd like to make that room useful again to the boards and committees so that they could actually meet in that room and be able to access their material during their meetings. So that's our goal, and we're getting there. She's still spread out a little on the table because she's still doing the maps right now. But But she does that when she doesn't have meetings to attend or minutes to take or minutes to type up, because the primary role is to support the board's ongoing. And so she comes in and works independently, and she's been fine. You know, the planning board has been using her. Certainly they've had a lot of meetings lately. I know the CPC uses her, but they pay her from their funds because it's a different funding mechanism, but they have also used her as well. We attempted to have her work with the Conservation Commission, and we're still trying to work that out. She has that availability, but we've just run into a few snags with timing issues and maybe a little personality issues, but we're trying to encourage that to happen as well, rather than to start hiring independent secretaries again, especially since we've been very unlucky in actually hiring a secretary for the Conservation Commission, because again, one of those positions where so they only meet once a month, and literally when I started there was nobody doing it. So I said, well, this is our opportunity to get somebody who could assist with that. So Lois can explain, you know, they then came to the board to argue for a different path. And
This is not a case of the person Andrea is talking about is replacing somebody else. They hadn't been able to hire anybody. And that room, I don't know if any of you ever have seen it or not, but it definitely needed some work in there. And I think this was a great idea that you had to get somebody in that could work for these. Now, one question came up about, well, she was working for another committee or something. So there was a recorder. Well, then it came up, well, the recorder was being used by somebody else. So you bought a separate recorder for the Conservation Commission. So if it's not there, the minutes can be taken that way, and then the person types them up.
we created a form they would just fill out when they started their meeting, who was present, and then they push record, and she gets the sheet and the recorder, and then she can take the minutes remotely. I mean, right now with Zoom, people are recording them and she's able to take them from the recording. So that hasn't been as big a deal, but I don't know if committees will go back to non-Zoom, but if they do, we do have actual manual little physical digital recorders so that they can record their meeting and she can take minutes from that.
Sure. So what I'm saying is that the Finance Committee is not looking to reinstate that money. We don't feel there's the need. And now, of course, we want to go before town meeting united in our front on this and our recommendations. So we're asking you how you feel about it and trying to provide you the information to make a decision. Any questions or any thoughts on it? How are you going to support us on this, or how do you feel?
I think having somebody in this position is a good idea, but I think the larger issue is that volunteerism and finding people to do things for towns is not what it used to be. So it's kind of hard to find some type of a commitment when it comes to that. I honestly haven't really been keeping up on this position very well. I have other things to really worry about. So just kind of like let it be the town hall administration type of issue to solve. And so I'm really, I don't really have a strong opinion on this one. What you said just now, Lois and Andrea, it sounds like, it sounds pretty good to me.
Okay, thank you. B?
Well, one, I think committee support is important. Sorry, I have a little guy on wheels behind me here.
Okay.
I think committee support is important. But I like the approach that Andrea and Lois have recommended, which is to centralize it. And I think that's a better way to get somebody in and get the resources that the committees need. I was a little bit concerned with setting a precedent, which is each committee gets their own. You know, if you start I was thinking from the historical commission standpoint, I'm like, we do our own minutes. So does that mean I can get secretarial support too? I would like to see it continue to be centralized, and I'm happy to bump up if, depending on what the finance committee thinks, I'm happy to bump up the amount in that line item under as proposed by and carried out by Andrea, because I think somebody who has a few extra hours here or there, but has the commitment to the job, can be doing, as Andrea pointed out, doing other things. And I have actually met in the land use room, and it's full of, last time I saw it, it was full of stuff. So it would be nice to have a handle on all of that material and have it easily accessible. The other thing that I would suggest is, if this person can work with the Conservation Commission, which I think they can, but if they have extra hours because of the way meeting schedules go, I would like to see more support for getting minutes of these various commissions and committees online. So when I look at the Conservation Commission, for example, online, those minutes, the last published minutes were December 19th, 2018. So I think there's a lot of interest within the town to be able to look at these documents. And if that would help people get them done and get them posted sooner, which they're supposed to from I forget what the time frame is, Dan, the
30 days.
30 days, there you go. So, and if people aren't meeting those commitments, that's a problem. So if we have a central solution, that means the person is being used effectively across more than one committee, I'm definitely in favor of that. So I would definitely support the Finance Committee recommendation and suggest that we bump up that line item in whatever line
But
item.
we're only actually
as needed.
increasing that by COLA. What we're doing is we're not allowing the Concom to increase their budget to add another person. What we're saying is we have that person. Please
Yeah,
feel free to use her, because her primary role is, right, her primary role is boards and committee support meetings.
Right.
Her secondary role is to do other little projects when
Yep.
she has time.
Right.
That support the boards. We're trying to do it in, boards, committees, and departments.
Gotcha.
And I know that
And
the
that's
Con-
really on
And
the
you don't need extra money right now for that.
no, I don't
Okay,
think
So you're
so.
good. Okay, so we've got the resource and we already have the money, and it sounds like a no-brainer to me.
It's just getting everybody or other people to buy into it and use the resource. The problem being is some people are territorial and basically, or want to have this person do more than she's qualified to do. She's basically there to take notes, to organize, but there are certain things in different committees that the committee is responsible for filling out forms and that sort of thing for their committee, because this person may not have the training to do that. So that's
we
where
also
we ran into
discussed,
a little bit of trouble.
if she started taking minutes and learning the process, it might evolve that she could do some more of that support. But anyone you hire is going to have, no one's going to come knowing the DEP laws in every form. So we were trying to encourage, if you use this person in just starting with minutes, they get to know the terminology, they get to know the process, they start to learn that. And then yes, they might actually be more useful in a support role, but they have to start somewhere. And they want, like, we need a secretary, and we're going to hire a secretary. Well, you're not going to hire a secretary that knows what you need them to know, because who does? Who's going to work 10 hours a month and know all that information? But we have somebody working 10 hours a week who might actually learn some of it over time.
And this is the person who already does the planning board, right?
Correct. And she does the
Okay, so the
CPC.
Yeah, and those are not, those are not uncomplicated things to learn as well. So if this person is successfully negotiating, doing minutes and things for the
She does
planning
them
board,
for other entities. She
That's
does
what
it
I
for a
mean.
school committee in Vermont is one of her primary. I mean, this is one
Okay.
of the things
So
she's very skilled at.
you've got
I
an
think.
experienced person, and we just need to somehow connect the Conservation Commission more strongly with this person.
We're working.
I
on
know
it.
that.
We keep
I
working
heard,
on it.
I know,
Yeah.
I heard his discussion with the Finance Committee, and I
Yeah.
felt his pain. I know he had his heart set on somebody who used to do this for them, but this person was also on furlough and might go back to work fairly soon. So that didn't sound like a great option for.
So we'll
for
keep
the town
offering,
or
we
the
keep
country.
offering her. She's definitely, support that they can utilize and is available. And even if she can't attend their meetings on the nights that they have it, they can record it by Zoom, they can record it digitally, and she can work from that. She has experience doing both of those at this time.
The other thing that Andrea has done is set up a better filing system there in the land use room. And I believe consolidating some of the files so that if one committee has done something with a landowner or whatever, and then another committee has had to act on it as well, you're working on consolidating that information so it's all together on one and having
It's
this
done.
person take care of it,
It's
right?
done. We have a central filing system. Yes, it's
Yeah,
done.
so what we're doing is anything that happens to a piece of property in the town of Northfield will be hooked to building permits, everything will go to the property, not the person that lives there.
Right. We haven't incorporated everybody. Board of Health keeps their own files. This is really planning and conservation right now. And then slowly over time, we might fold in some other things, but we wanted to go through those. And you just had, turnover in those. You had, people who were secretaries and support staff, and they would not necessarily follow the same filing system as someone else. So we would find file drawers with a completely different system from a new secretary for, so there would be 3 different drawers of Concom stuff, all filed differently. So we wanted to get to a centralized system where it was all filed the same going forward. And because we get requests for information, and that information is public record, and we need to be able to find it, not just a person who might have been the secretary 5 years ago. We need a system. So
Heath, do you have any comment on it?
No, I mean, this has just been several different conversations I've heard of how much this is needed. So, I mean, I fully support it. I just think, like echoing what everybody else has said, that we just need to make sure it's done properly and the person has prescribed scopes of work that they're going to do and the expectations are clear so they don't get taken advantage of, and that the townspeople feel like it's funding that's worth the while. So, I mean, from what I've heard, I think there's more than enough that would keep this person occupied, and it sounds like you may have somebody in mind. So I think I'm fully a support of it. It sounds like
Somebody on the job now.
yes, she's been there for a year.
Yep.
Yeah. Sure.
So she knows it.
There's a little bit of possessiveness involved here.
And turnover will help change that, I think, over time, just naturally.
So, all right, thank you very much. Then
Lois, I do have one question in regards to that position, and I guess to Andrea as well. So so I've been doing the minutes for the sewer commission for the past 3 years, and I won't be on the sewer commission this May. I'm not rerunning for that position.
Right.
So I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but before I took the minutes were not up to the correct standard that the sewer commission minutes should be at. They weren't. So we bought a laptop, and I've been doing the minutes on a Microsoft Word document and just basing them off of how Sandra does minutes. I'd like to think they've done a pretty good job of it. They've done pretty good. But my concern is, I know Dan Gray pretty well. I can't see him typing on a laptop. I can't speak for Rob. I don't know if he's very good on a laptop. I don't know. But just based on where the committee will be in the next few months, I can't see anybody on it, in my opinion, that will want to be typing 1,000 word minutes. So is that position able to be helping out the sewer commission as well?
I think if you decide you have money in your budget to pay that position, it's a possibility. We can talk. We can talk to her and see what additional time she might have. I know she's doing the CPC as well, and they're paying her from their funding source. So it's not out of the question. We can certainly approach her and talk to her about what that might entail.
Wonderful. Okay.
And Alex, you've been doing a great job on the minutes because you've been right up to date on everything.
Just getting them, yeah.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, Dan. I think there's maybe one meeting in November I ended up finding in one of the mailboxes. I just got to get signatures on, but I've tried to do a good job with it. It hasn't been easy.
Did. So, you can pat yourself on the back. You're one of the ones that does a great job, along with Beth and Sandra.
So with your enterprise fund, it would come out of that, but you're sure. So, good point. Talk with
Okay.
them about the future.
I mean,
Okay,
if they meet once or twice a month, it's not a huge expense when you start to add it up,
right.
but it's a vital service.
Okay, I guess we're all set on that one then. And Finance Committee have any concern to, we voted on it, now they're going to support it as well, okay? All right, so that's going through the omnibus with that. Now, there is another item that I think that we need to talk about. The building maintenance wages. We have not had any requests to make any changes in that line item. Of course, Andrea applied for us the COLA. We decided on recommending a 1.7 COLA this year. The reason for that is that, well, back up a little bit. Normally, we try to go with what the federal government has given for a COLA to the usually Social Security and federal increases. And that would have been a little less. We have a police department union that was scheduled to get a 1.7% increase. So the Finance Committee decided, why not everybody then? So we're recommending a 1.7% COLA this year. And so, of course, part of the process of preparing the budget is that Andrea has gone through and applied that to all the wage accounts. And of course, some places where I'm not talking about an increase or anything, it's because there might be step increases due to the employees, according to our pay plan, or of course, the COLA would make a difference. So that's what that is. So anyway, we did not have any requests to make any changes other than we had the in the location or anything like that. And then we understand, though, that some of you may have some concerns about that. The maintenance, yes.
You did have a request from Highway. Highway wants you to move that job into the highway budget. I haven't taken that. Oh, he's made the request. He made it of the select board when they first changed the
Not
status.
when he came to us, whatever. Anyway.
Well, I know that you had strong feelings one way and the select board had feelings a different way. And so that's why one of the reasons I wanted you guys to get together and resolve it. I did not want to be the person who got to make that decision. It needs to be a joint decision here. It also involves moving some expenses out of the maintenance line items and putting those in the highway department. So like cell phone payments and
what we've got
with
is
the position.
Maintenance persons. The only line is the maintenance person's salary or wages.
Yeah, but there's town hall maintenance budget that incorporates many line items, some of which would be his cell phone, which would come out of that maintenance line item and move over to highway.
Okay. I hadn't had a breakout like that of whatever.
Yeah, if you look at the line by item in
The
your
breakout,
master spreadsheet, you'll see that there's actually a breakout for maintenance. It isn't just that one big number. That 62,000 that you have breaks down to, you know, a bunch of different not his salary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 line items are incorporated in that $62,650 budget.
Okay. So they have
A line item for phone.
in it, but that's not exclusive for the building maintenance person then.
No, it has the custodian salaries in there. There's building maintenance repair, there's propane, pellet, fuel, you know, so no, that's town building maintenance in general, but the only thing that would be the cell phone. There's a cell phone line item.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about maintaining the wage or the salary line for that building maintenance person. Actually, it's a town meeting vote years ago that created that. And that's why we do not recommend taking that line item out. Granted, over the years, it's changed from, at one point it was under the town administrator for supervision, and then it's under the highway superintendent for supervision. the idea is that there are times when that maintenance position is not, there isn't 40 hours of work a week. So it was agreed that the person could fill in by working in the highway department at times to make up the time. So that's okay. We don't have a problem with that. It's the idea that the history of it is that back about 20 years ago, the reason for hiring the physician, and you probably know, is to get around the prevailing wage law. If you hire anybody, as you know, Heath, you hire somebody, you've got to pay prevailing wage under most conditions. So the thought back then was proposed by a select board that thought that, well, we can avoid prevailing wage if we hire somebody qualified to do some repair work and maintenance type work for the town and put them on the town payroll, pay benefits and so forth. So that was the reason that the town created the position. Then it came along in the 80s, money was tight. The select board came forward and said, let's give up the maintenance position as a means of saving money. So they did. And in a couple of years, though, things got better. So the position was reinstated, and which meant we didn't go through the process of, as you know, we have to vote we do vote anyway, every new position. So we didn't go back through that process. It was called a reinstatement. So it was just put back into the budget that way. So it does, save paying on prevailing wage and that sort of thing. And we felt that it's been worthwhile to have the position. So I hate to see you talk about going totally against the town meeting vote by saying that you're just going to absorb this into the highway department. The reason being that we feel that we need to show that we do have a maintenance position. It came to my attention a year ago or so, and that when the custodian at the town hall was out due to a death in the family, and there was snow that needed to be shoveled, I believe it was Dan and Andrea that were out there shoveling because they were told the highway department needed the person and he couldn't be spared. Now that to me is unacceptable. So, I just feel as though we need to sort of respect the town meeting vote on that and not just, I'd like to hear what your reasons are for saying you'd like to see it absorbed totally into the highway department. To me, that takes away, we're not all going to be here for forever, less than you people, but you're going to have successors come along and they're going to say, well, why is this? And then pretty soon somebody's going to forget that it really is a maintenance position, not somebody that works for the highway department that will occasionally help out with something else. So I think we need to discuss that. And I don't like to go against the town meeting vote. So would you care to tell me what's behind this?
So I can speak because that's my industry and that's my expertise for the last 17 years. So maintenance positions and custodial positions should be under someone who knows the position. So in a lot of industries, whether it's colleges, school districts, towns, there'll be somebody like Andrea who's in charge of a specific building, like a principal who's in charge of a school. Their concern is how they want the building to look, how they want it maintained, and how they want it upkept. It is not their responsibility nor their area of expertise to manage custodial and maintenance folks. That's someone in the position of a Tom Walker or a Heath Cummings or somebody who's in a directorial position who has that area of expertise. Now, if this person who, like this position we've just moved out of the town hall, isn't holding up the end of the deal according to Andrea, then that's a performance issue that we as the select board have to work on with the person who's in charge of that position. Not only the person who's in the position who's not doing the expectations, but also the person who's supervising it. Now, I wanted the position to be under the supervision of the DPW, and the rest of the select board agreed when I made that suggestion, and we cumulatively agreed on that. And the budget for that position then should be under the DPW, but that doesn't mean that Andrea and Dan should be out shoveling because this position is under the DPW. The same arrangements of the primary responsibilities of that position remain the same. Just the overall supervision of it, sticking with industry standards, was what was adjusted. And I think the money to support just the salary of that position should probably be moved because it is under the supervision of another department. But really the responsibilities and everything else that goes along with it should not change. You shouldn't notice anything. If anything, you should notice more of a support mechanism, that there's probably more contact with the DPW and you're getting almost more service than you did at a certain point because there's a better working relationship between that person and the DPW directly. But you shouldn't ever have a lapse in coverage. If there is, then that's something we need to work on as far as a supervisory level goes.
So, and this is the first few months, so I could at least speak to quickly just answer Heath, and then obviously Alex can speak. I am not proposing one way or the other here. I just want you to know that. And I don't have a complaint with how this position has been managed for the last few months. We have put in work orders directly to Tom, and the work orders, and I mean, even Sandra can nod her head here. I think the work orders have been responded to. So I'm not proposing in any way, shape, or form that has happened. I just want that out there. It's a Lois, speaking from a different sort of background.
Yeah. Now I was just going to kind of touch on what Heath was saying a little bit, that, about a year ago, a little bit longer than that, we were having issues with how this position was to be utilized and how this person would be managing and maintaining town buildings. And it just doesn't seem, and this is no offense to anybody in an administrative role, but it doesn't really make sense to me that somebody who knows nothing about electrical or painting or anything like that, should that person have to answer to the administrator of the building? They should be answering more to a person who has done that type of work and that is where I think we were going with this when we wanted to change this position.
No, we're not questioning that part of it all. That the supervision of it, that's changed long before you fellas came along anyway. It's not that at all. It's just having the line item stay there, showing that we do have a maintenance person and have a salary set up for that position. So go ahead, Alex.
Oh, no. Okay. So I guess what I'm just saying here is that, all right, regardless of who this person answers to, I still think it's important for the money to be with the highway. I just pretty much what Heath had said and what I just said a second ago. I just think it looks better that if this person is under the supervision of the highway, that the money should be in the highway. And that's really all I can say about it from my experiences in dealing with this position.
So in the future, staff changes and so forth, how do we know we have a maintenance person with money allocated for that cost? There'd be nothing in the highway budget to indicate that.
I would put something in the highway budget to indicate that. I mean, if you have a sergeant for the police department, you have a line item to indicate that person's salary. I mean, shouldn't there be the same sort of line item in the DPW's budget?
Well, I do track on a spreadsheet individuals. It's taken me a while to break it apart because actually you guys had kind of lost that and gone to a big blob of money. And it does come to town meeting as a single sum, but I have broken that out now. So I do carry on a spreadsheet individual positions, step and grade, and I follow them through and all that. But it has been lost in the past, but I think we have broken that back out for the most part. I do have a few places where there's still some money that's like bunched together and we're picking it apart. But it has been, and it doesn't to say that we don't know how much each person makes and what their salary is, because we do. But there had been times when it had kind of when you look at the budget, police salary and wages comes in as one, highway wages comes in as one.
Okay.
And I have broken it out and we do have the justification for that.
Okay, So you spoke about police, all right? They have a pay rate for their grade and position and so forth and the length of time. So now you're going to have most of the fellows. I mean, you have a highway superintendent, you have a foreman. Then you've got truck driver laborer, I think the title is.
Yep.
For the others with a job description. This person has a different job description and a different pay scale. So you've got fellows working along side by side, and when it's time to be, this person is working for the highway department because there doesn't happen to be any need for the maintenance work. So they're working side by side. This fella has his own truck. We bought a truck purpose for the maintenance position a few years back, not that long ago. So you don't think these others are going to be a little bit upset to think that we're all doing the same work right now, and yet he's getting more money than I am? I don't think it's fair. Any thoughts on that when you get a rebellion about that?
What are we talking as far as the pay scale? I don't have that information in front of me. What are we?
I have no idea. It's up to you.
Andrea,
I think she's talking the way it's classified, because they could be at different pay scales right now. It's hard to say. Do you know what I'm saying? A highway guys would be making more than maintenance because maintenance is a new guy, but they do have different job classifications. Yes.
I know
They're
that
classified differently.
I know that Tom eventually wants to revisit the grade and step classification for his highway personnel, and this is definitely something to have that conversation at that, at a future date. I've been saying that, I've said this before, we're all the same town here. The money is getting spent. We should be like kind of all on the same team. I realize it's a good point, Lois, that wages are different between whoever, for different positions and stuff like that, but we're all on the same side. So I'm really hoping that the end result is that it's a team effort. We're working as a team.
I mean, I'll give an example from an employee perspective. I was the school resource officer with a lot more specialized training than a standard patrolman. Made the same amount of money. Didn't bother me.
Public service. It's about, doing it for your municipality, not about making absorbent amounts of money that everyone is obsessed with in our consumerist and capitalist days of society. So
I just think, as an employer, we need to be fair to people too as well. I just don't see the harm in leaving the line for the maintenance person's salary.
I do, because it's not in that department anymore. They work for the DPW. It's supervised by Tom Walker. It should be under his department. We wouldn't put the school resource officer who works at the school is still under the police department. He works for the police department. It's part of that department now. So the money should be moved concurrently. That's my opinion.
so in essence, what you guys are saying, that you don't need a maintenance person because the priority is no longer maintenance of the buildings.
I don't think we said that at all.
Well, who's going to have priority then? If something comes up at town hall, he gets a call, does he come instantly over to town hall?
Depends on the severity, I'd say. If they have a major emergency somewhere and we're talking like a squeaky door hinge that needs to be maintained, I think we make a judgment call. I think that's something
who
that
makes
Tom has
that
to do.
judgment call?
His supervisor.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really
I'm
had
not
those
sure how this
problems.
relates to finance committee though. I mean, this is more
No,
policy
because
and
they're
budget.
talking about the funding of it, and I don't want anyone to think that we've had a problem with that. I mean, we put in a work order and we let Tom sort out the priority. We have not really had a work order problem with that. We had one issue with it a year prior, with an issue with a senior center, and a pretty interesting priority there, and the person was unavailable to us. But overall, in the 2 years I've been here, that's once. But we will have to work that out. We will have to work that out because it has occurred once, and we're hopeful that it won't occur again. But yes, I see both sides of this. So that's just to give you my perspective on this. I am a little concerned about one thing Heath said, though. You talked about moving the custodian. That one I have a little bit of a hesitancy on, because we work very closely with the custodian in our building, including everything from ordering her supplies to, to special projects for cleaning projects in the town hall. And I think we're more than capable of that, which is different than maintenance. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, industry-wise, it goes that way. I don't want to have that discussion about the custodian.
I understand. It's only a part-time position. We're not talking full-time, doesn't go to multiple buildings.
No,
It's not,
I just
it's not
use it
as
an
detailed
example.
as
Like,
the,
it's the same industry, but I don't want to touch that if we don't have to. It's
I agree. It's not the same, quite the same thing as the maintenance
No.
position, I would say.
I would say that as the select board, Heath and I haven't heard from B at all. That is our opinion on it. It's not going to change, and I'm hoping that we can honor that and move forward.
B, what do you think?
Well, from a person, I'm just sorting through what I heard. So I think in terms of personnel and reporting structure and having the finance or the accounting follow the personnel structure, I'm comfortable with that. I want to make sure that I'm clear on what the primary concern of the finance committee is in this particular instance. Because Lois, you mentioned a few things, and I think where we started or where you started was being accountable to the town and respecting a vote that was taken. So do we need to square this at the town meeting in order to make this clear? Is that the concern?
I don't know, Nate, you want to comment on whether they can violate violate's too strong. We had a town meeting vote setting up the position, and I don't have any problem with talking about the supervision and changing that, that's all.
Mhm.
And I still don't understand what the problem is of having a single line that just says maintenance person's salary. Nate, do you have any thoughts about town meeting vote creating this and then changing it?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of in terms of prior town meeting kind of process, no town meeting can bind a future town meeting, and it's not that it can't ever be changed in the future. I think in transparency, at the very least, you'd want to call it to the attention of the townspeople and just say, hey, we made a change here, and we don't want to just make something without calling it out. Making a change and pointing it out to the townspeople that this is a deviation from what we've done in the past and explaining why would probably be the most transparent way to do it. I wouldn't weigh in whether I think it's a good idea or a bad idea to do it. I would just say if we're going to deviate from what we've done in the past, we probably ought to just explain that very briefly to the townspeople and let them hear the logic.
I think they're going to see it. I mean, the budget will change substantially. I think you're going to have to explain it to some extent.
Yeah, well, that's the only thing I see is you lose the identity of saying that we have a maintenance person. And that's the only thing I'm talking about is that line that you people want to dissolve and just absorb into the highway department budget. Why? Where is it going? You saying that he can supervise the person, he decides when they do what work and so forth. Fine, no problem. But just leave something there to show that we did recognize the need to have a maintenance person in town and voted it at one time. And so here's a line item, accounting wise, to me, it makes sense to show that, yes, you have that money for that type of person. They didn't have any trouble a few years ago coming up with a truck for the maintenance person. I can't remember how it was voted, but that wasn't a problem at that time. So why are we eliminating the identity of a eliminating the identity of a maintenance person? I don't see what you're losing.
Are you saying though, Lois, that if he's over there and his title is still maintenance man, but he's under the jurisdiction of Tom, that would be fine?
Yeah,
There you
Okay.
go.
So you're talking about the visibility at the town meeting, town level is what you're concerned about. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. That's what you're not concerned with the overall idea and the way that we've described how we see it working. You're just concerned with losing that visibility. Am I clear on that?
I'm concerned with the accounting, financial accounting,
Yeah.
which, yeah, that's all.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear,
Yeah,
as a group. Yeah.
I'd like to see something that still identifies that we have provided for maintenance position. And that's in this list of accounts here that will be voted as the omnibus. That's you. I think you've got it. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like we're in agreement on most of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just you would like to retain that visibility. And if we don't want to retain that visibility as a select board, then per Nathan's advice, and also just from a responsibility to the town, then we should square that with the town and explain what we're doing.
That's what Nathan is
Yeah.
saying.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not,
Yep.
I've seen it evolve over the years and was under the town administrator.
Mhm.
It went out from that. I think it went back once and so forth. That I'm not arguing about. You have it under the highway superintendent. He has more experience to know what this work might be and so forth. I don't have a problem with that. I'm
Okay.
just concerned that, the town did recognize the need for a maintenance person and create the position. And we have the salary in a line item. And I hate to see that disappear, that's all.
And I don't think it should disappear. I think it should move over to the DPW's budget and very clearly indicated with the same salary. It doesn't disappear. It's just moved over somewhere else.
It
And
gets
goes
followed
into
up
the
in that
department
salary
that's
account. And I hate to disagree with you, but once it's put into that salary account, that's the end of it, seeing it as a maintenance position. And you're gone out of office, I'm gone, so forth. Who remembers what it was for? And somebody someday comes up maybe with the idea that, gee, we should have a maintenance person here. How are you going to distinguish that?
I don't see that being possible because that's like somebody saying, we should have a sergeant for the police department. It's clearly indicated in our budget. I don't understand the
Now,
debate at all.
how is it indicated in your budget?
In the police department, you don't have a line item?
No. Highway, let's stick with the highway department. How is it indicated?
You're going to move it there. That's what I'm proposing. You take the
You're
position and the salary and you
moving a
move
dollar figure, aren't you?
Excuse me?
You're
I can't hear
moving
because
a
you're
dollar-
talking over me. So we got to kind of like exchange a conversation here.
You're moving a dollar figure. That's all I can see.
Okay, move the dollar figure along with what the dollar figure is attached to, meaning the title of the position. Move both of them to the DPW.
Where does that show up?
Actually, if you look at your sheet, the master spreadsheet I send you, the big one with all the tabs, look at the employee pay detail tab. It's red, bright red. If you click on that, you see that huge spreadsheet with all the different colors?
I haven't got it right here. I can't eliminate one thing here and get the other.
Yeah.
Wow.
That has every position. That's the place where I track it. I created this spreadsheet to do that exact thing because it wasn't being completely done. Now this tracks every person and every position.
So it won't just simply disappear no matter where it goes.
It's all
No.
it's taxpayer money. It shouldn't really matter as long as we explain. Should be fine.
It's in that tab now because I've created a spreadsheet with every employee in town. By name, position, grade, step, last step, hours worked per week, hourly base pay, COLA, step, current year pay, effective increase, their Medicare amount, their unemployment amount, their total pay were, and their F-22 wages, what they cost the town for every position in town. You guys don't have that tab on your sheet, but I can send it to you to see. The spreadsheet I sent you with all the tabs on the bottom, you have the truncated sheet. It's just not on that sheet, but on that big spreadsheet, but it does exist with every person's wages and
It's
position.
just, I think
It's the only place to track it.
yeah, and that's the only place.
Yes.
So who sees it, you know? So I'm talking from an accounting point of view, and that's it. So, okay, I guess, is anybody else on the finance committee want to make any comment at this point?
So the
I think
budget
we're
won't
good.
change, but I'll be moving those things around, just so you know.
Yeah.
Based on the selectmen's.
All right,
Is that position, excuse me, is that position going to be indicated on the highway department budget
No.
as town
Not-
maintenance?
No, usually you put your,
Is it just going to be under general salary?
you have highway department wages. Unless we create a whole new line item in the highway department just for that position, but I was intending to put it in the wages.
so
Would
it,
it, would it help then? Sorry, Lois.
yeah,
Would it help then to carve that out in the highway budget so it can be seen?
yeah,
I mean, edit as maintenance man, sure, why not?
sure, yeah.
How does that
And
work, Andrea?
where it doesn't lose its identity, sure.
No, I mean, I could add that line item. The only thing that we have to be careful about is if this person is in fact plowing and then using overtime,
Okay.
which they would be.
Right.
If I put it in their wage line item, I have to now I'll have to calculate some function. If I put them in the other wage line item, it has a function
Okay,
for the highway department for winter wages, because we do, or even summer if there's a storm. But generally that person isn't used for that. But if we're going to use them, which we've discussed and everyone seems to be in agreement on, we really kind of have to include him in the calculation so that we have some additional money there. Because if they're going to go out and plow and he has a plow route, he's going to have to be compensated for that.
Yeah. Overtime.
We'd have to put him under two different things, which I could do. I just have to break him out into,
so that would be similar to what we're doing now.
I'd have to break him into two places, which I mean, I can do. I'd
Okay,
have his building maintenance salary, but then he'd also have to go in under snow removal and overtime wages salary.
okay.
What does he get? What's the overtime rate then? Is it at the maintenance person's?
Yes, it would have, you has to be.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's all doable. It's just spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
I'm looking for if possible, I'm looking for the medium, right, in between the
That's really up to you. I'm
happy
just- I'm
Venn
just-
diagram space between the finance committee and the select board that
And I
meets.
can do anything you
Lois's-
want. I'm just looking for someone to tell me what to do.
It'd be your idea that, yes, it'd be a subheading that way. You've still got the identity there. That's what I'm looking for.
Right, that's what I'm hearing from you, Lois, is that you want the identity and that clarity. And I think that we could do that, see how it goes for this year and continue to discuss this, as well as square it at the town meeting and indicate this is what we're doing. This is the history of this position. And I think we should also make it clear that this position, from my understanding, is not just town hall, it's library and other
All
Northfield.
town buildings.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I think we should make that clear as well, because I think we keep calling it town hall and it's not just town.
No,
hall.
it's not town hall.
Right,
It's town buildings.
yeah,
Building maintenance wages.
Fire station, library, school.
Yep.
And our elementary school, there might be some things there too.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
it seems reasonable to me. It's a little bit, it's a little bit more work, but I think it's reasonable and it accomplishes both concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then you have, going further into this book, you have the articles. And actually, I don't think we're gonna have much of a discussion about the articles because we're recommending all the, we always see, I don't know why, we refer to them as special articles. Well, they are special, I guess. But we are recommending all the financial articles that are being requested. And they're justified as the needs of our departments. And we worked with Andrea to allocate available funds accordingly. And so that is something we get into. What's, oh, how much free cash is available? What do we got for state aid? And what do we got for our own?
And again, the selectmen have that chart, the FY ATM annual town meeting articles, so you can see what they're proposing for the funding sources.
Okay, so
The
you've all
tab,
got,
they have a tab down in the bottom, so they should be able to pull that up and see your
okay,
FY ATM articles, and that's right now the chart that we've been using to complete the recommended.
so you can see, you know, highway department truck and another piece of equipment. One thing that we, well, you probably haven't even seen it, but the fire department rescue vehicle is next year that he wants that. It's not this year. And so the other items that have been requested are, we're recommending. I don't know whether you people have feelings on them or you're going to go along with recommending them the same as we are or not. Have you given any thought to it yet or discussed it? Maybe you haven't seen them yet. I don't know.
They saw a draft a little while back, so it probably didn't have absolutely everything in it, but they did see a draft a while ago. So, you know, once you guys are generally done and make your recommendations, we just wanted to touch base on things that I wanted to have a clear sense of where you wanted them. And now
Sure.
that the select board kind of has all the details, then you guys will discuss it at your
Okay.
meeting and how
All
you
right.
feel.
Well-
But yeah, they've seen some of it, but probably the last few that have come in, no, they haven't.
Okay, all right. Well, the other thing is, there's a room occupancy tax, and we're supporting that. There's a marijuana tax, and I think that's good planning ahead to get it in before we have anybody looking to sell, so forth. You get the tax in place first, and we're supporting that. But we voted to take no action on the local meals tax. So how do you feel about, do you have any comment at this point, or do you want to wait or whatever? But we need to, Sandra's waiting for me to write a report, what we're recommending, right, Sandra? Yeah, I know. It's the next thing I have to work on.
Well, I've sat through, except for one, I've sat through the finance committee meetings, so I'm clear on what you're recommending, and I've heard the discussion, particularly on the marijuana tax, for example. I thought was a really proactive thing for us, those kinds of things to do. The only thing I don't remember, to be honest with you, Lois, is why the on the local meals, what was the finance committee thinking on that?
Mainly that it was local people. Whereas like the room tax, you're going to get outsiders coming in and
Oh,
anticipating what the Moody Center might do with the buildings there on Main Street. They're talking about having what, a B&B or hotel or something. And whereas the meals tax, you go into Mims and take out a sandwich,
right.
they have to, would have to add on a tax like that.
But it was, what was, Andrea, refresh our memories, what's the amount, the pass-through amount on a breakfast sandwich, for example?
It's 0.25. So right now we're at 625 cents in your taxation. This is 0.75. So it's 3/4 of a penny per dollar to make you go from 6.25 to 7.
This is on top of the state tax.
Right.
That is the state tax is
That would be,
6.25,
yeah.
right? And it would be 0.75 to take you from 6.25 to 7.
Okay. That answer your question, B?
Yes, yeah, thanks for that.
Pretty much that was it. Okay. So running through the list of articles here, I mean, of the items, it was there's something with revolving funds and so forth.
Right, and I don't know, they haven't really had a discussion on the capital stabilization versus general stabilization, and I don't know that that's real, but more importantly, you might want to talk about the Shell Bridge article that just came about
Oh, yes.
at your last meeting,
Okay.
because that's proposed now for some funding.
You're gonna get some kickback maybe at town meeting on that, because originally it was set that with the rebuilding of Shell Bridge, there was going to be no cost to the town. So then it's come in that Andrea's been doing some work on the rights of way that are needed. Some of them are temporary for the construction and access to the bridge, and some of them may be permanent. And there are legal costs involved in this. And I think you haven't arrived at a settlement with everybody, and there may be a cost for the settling with and a butter. Don't know yet. So that's is that about it, Andrea? What you want?
Right, the bulk of this is being driven by the funding that we're going to have to do with First Light Hydro, because their process is the most complicated, the most regulatory. They have to file with FERC, and they have to do a federal filing, probably even subjugate a mortgage in order to do this. So they have attorney's fees and all that, and they're going to charge the town to do all that in order for this project. The state covers the $20 million project, but they've never in any of these projects, it's just not, they do not cover the right of way. That is always the local responsibility. I don't, we've reached out to most, B has been involved in this process. We've reached out to most of the abutters. The only one we haven't spoken to is pretty much the smallest of the abutters, but the other abutters, I think we're looking at little to no or very simple deals and issues, but we do have some cost to our attorneys. You guys approved me spending up to $15,000 a while back because I had to contract with a company that's going to do the Mylars and the actual physical maps that I have to send to the residents, and our lawyers are drafting the letters. There's legal letters and releases and donation certificates, and our lawyers have to draft those because these are all legal documents. They have to be filed at the registry because they are land implicating legal documents. So they're easements. The temporary ones as well, even though they will expire, but the permanent ones are permanent. So B and I have been meeting with various entities to discuss impact and work on that.
So that's what's involved in that one. And Andrea's had to be working on that now for some time.
Me too.
Yes, B's been involved in it.
Yeah, okay.
I think just in going over the MassDOT maps with the abutters, I think the response has been quite positive. And MassDOT, unlike in other situations, has been very responsive to the concerns about vehicles turning around and that sort of thing. So all that was discussed with the abutters as well. So I think we're moving along well. And if I remember correctly, the entire project is something like 22 million.
Yes.
Yeah, we're over 20.
Funds.
We're up over 20, no doubt.
Right. And we currently own the bridge. The town owns the bridge. So
and the road, the actual road.
And the road. So I think 25,000 to get this kind of project in place in the next 2 to 3 years, and the beneficial impact on the town, I'm comfortable supporting this article.
Okay, all right. Then when the road, you want to get.
I don't know, Alex, did Alex or Heath want to comment on that?
Oh.
B's been involved, so she kind of knows the layout.
Yeah.
So,
Alex?
I'll mute myself.
So I'll just be brief. I got to get going in a few minutes. I got to give my 5-month-old a bath, so I got to get for that. No, I've supported the bridge since the very beginning, and I know all the door knocking I did when I was first running. I did run into a few residents who were very conservative in the way that money should be spent in this town and didn't believe that we should be doing anything with bridges or anything like that. But I think it's something for Northfield. That's what I keep reminding myself. It's something for the town. It's something that it's this long project that we've had former state senators there with us through most of the project's life. And we should see it out to the end, and we should do this for Northfield. I think we deserve it. So it's money. It's showing that we have a stake holding it, and it's showing that we have an interest in it. And I guess that's part of the small print when it comes to politics a little bit. If you want the big money, you want the big dollar grants, the small print says, well, show us why you want this. And this is one of those ways that we have to show them. So that's what I got to say about that.
Okay. Heath, you
Yeah,
have
I'm
any?
very much in support of this. I think this is an important landmark in Northfield's history, and I think it'd be a important landmark in Northfield's future as far as that whole area with the campus and everything goes. I think it builds a really great connection to people wanting to come to the town, and I think we need that sort of industry coming here and people to see those kind of great sites. And we're on the hook either way if something happens and it's going to eventually deteriorate to the point where it could be an environmental impact issue and it falls in the river. And I don't think any of us want to deal with that sort of thing. So I think any work that we have to do to support it, it has my full support. And I think everything that's been laid out so far, the financial impacts of what it has to the town to set that work up is really nothing compared to what it will be if we do nothing and we have to wait for that bridge to deteriorate further.
Well, you have the list, and we have, voted to support these articles. And so then the community preservation has their articles, and of course we support those. So I think we'll leave it that you discuss these more at your meeting. I don't think you'll find anything controversial there and so forth.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do at this point is ask Nathan if he has any discussion he'd like to have with any of us getting ready for town meeting now. Nate, now you have had in the past, you've had an article consolidating some articles to make town meeting run a little smoother and quicker. You want to make any comments on those things?
Yeah, I've not had a lot of time to go through the motions and the articles.
Yeah.
By tradition, we have a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but we have some articles whose need is kind of questioned, the need to do them all as separate articles. We have a lot of this kind of a lot of warrant articles that can be combined into at least one motion. In some towns, they actually combine a lot of these initial warrant articles. For instance, numbers 1, 2, and 3. It's very interesting to see how different towns combine articles to have fewer articles, fewer motions, those kind of things. We can do that, and I can make a suggestion for that before we actually get to the final stages of a warrant. Sometimes I see the warrant when it's a little too late for that stuff. Other times I see it early enough. Ultimately, though, the warrant is entirely the select board's purview. It's theirs to write, it's theirs to set, and it's totally your purview. But I'd be happy to give some feedback on some ways to maybe streamline it and just shorten the warrant a little bit if that's desirable. Yeah.
And that's if you want to change the actual articles, because this time I'm just going to put the articles in. So obviously we can work on the motions as separate for what they signed.
Yeah. What's the timeline for the articles?
Articles were due today.
Okay.
So this is it, unless the select board adds anything, because they have that purview up until they have to sign it, theoretically. They can add anything they want up until that point. But this is it for any public or committee generally, unless they go to the select board directly and ask for that permission. So
Yeah, but for instance, if the select board wanted to combine articles like 1, 2, and 3, that would certainly still be within their purview to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Just be,
until they sign it, it really is.
Okay.
I haven't run this by the attorney yet. I just haven't, because I wanted to wait till we had everything settled and I had every article. So I'll probably clean it up and do some changes. And then at some point I will run the language by the attorney, especially the ones in the back where I took them from other places, but I want to make sure that they're still current and referencing the right things.
If the select board is interested in that, I'm happy to do it. I also know that, the warrant is yours and it is yours to set and yours to design. And my role comes in after you actually create it, but I'm happy to give advice ahead of time if you want it.
I think he's made the offer, and I think it's well to take my suggestion, take him up on it and streamline it if it's possible. It's been done in the past and it's worked well, hasn't it, Nathan?
It has, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm in favor of input from Nathan, if that helps to state it clearly. I think anything we can do for all of us to go into the town meeting in the most efficient and clarifying way, so that it's the most engaging for citizens to get through, because sometimes it is a long agenda. I'm all for some streamlining.
Yeah,
Nate's yeah.
Nate's a smart guy. Let him chat. Absolutely.
So Nathan, if you want to look at it and give that back to me for me to put together any suggestions you have, and then I'll take it to the selectmen when they, look at it. They're not going to sign it for a little bit yet, but I'll take it back to them at least one more time, at least once more for them to make comment on, so can incorporate any suggestions.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. I think, does anybody else have any business that should come before us at this time? I think then the select board may want to close their meeting. This is posted as a joint meeting, but wouldn't you close your meeting now, adjourn your meeting, and then we'll adjourn ours?
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the select board portion of this.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Finance Committee, do you have anything further that you wanted to bring up tonight? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Are we going to meet again or no?
Do you want to meet one more time?
If
Andrea-
only if needed.
Yeah, no.
If we're not
Do you want to
needed,
wait a week and see if anything comes up before because you don't necessarily have anything new for next week, but if something comes up, I can alert you for the week after, like you're not in any rush. Right now, I'm gonna work on this. I'll work on it with Nate. We'll get this warrant together and then the select board can weigh in on their piece. And then if something comes up for you guys, play it by
Okay.
ear.
That sounds good.
Yep.
And
I mean, I don't have anything to bring you at the next meeting other than what you've already seen, unless you have something.
Right. In the meantime,
Okay.
you're going to work on trying to get a meeting with the school committee.
I am going to reach out and see if I can sweet talk them.
Good luck.
But thanks.
Lois,
Okay.
Lois, can I ask a question? I'm sorry to interrupt. I hate to rain on people's parade, but there was one item we discussed, but we never took an official vote on.
Okay.
We're supposed to vote on the recommendation of the PVRS budget assessment
Yeah.
and their capital items. Remember, we discussed, but we never took an official vote
Right.
on their budget or their capital items. So I just didn't want us to be caught in a bind here.
Yeah, because I will have to write that out.
Made some suggestions on it. Did you have a motion on it?
Well, I think Dan was on the issue of there's really not much we're going to be able to do in this short period of time we have. I think having a meeting in the future with them, opening the door to them to discuss, fine. But I think we need to make a decision tonight. I know that you were discussing that, Lois, that we would have to make a decision. So
Right.
I make a motion to vote that we recommend PVRS's fiscal year 22 budget and capital items.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Thank you for doing that. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous then.
Thank you for your patience with that. I just wanted to get that
No,
clarified.
thank you. I'm glad you thought of it because
With that bit of business taken care of, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn for the evening.
right.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much and good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, all.
Right.
Have a good night.